Thank you for tuning into the live show. You know what time it is. It is your boy Genesis. Yes, sir. We are back like we never left. You know what time it is. All right. Welcome back to the channel. We are back. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. Thank you to the new subscribers. Thank you to the new viewers. God bless you. Thank you for liking. Thank you for donating. Super like, super chat. Thank you so much. With that being said, today's date is the 23rd of December 2024, and it is currently 10:02 p.m. in the United States. Well, in the eastern part. What am I saying? No. Eastern time, okay? Eastern time, 10:02 p.m. All right. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, so the title for today is What is Going On in America? What is going on in America, guys? What is going on? New news every day we get up. Okay. New news. We have a new updates from the House Ethics report on Matt Gaetz. What is going on with Matt Gaetz, everybody? This is just mind blowing. I mean, there's been conversations and talks about misconduct or whatever, but now it's like, it's out. It's out. What is this? Let's check it out.
Let's get right to the House Ethics Committee report on Matt Gaetz. We're learning more and more about the sex and drug allegations against the former Republican congressman who was forced to bow out as President-elect Trump's choice for U.S. Attorney General. CNN's Caitlin Polantz has been studying the report and the supporting evidence that was released just a little while ago. Caitlin, give us the latest details.
Well, Wolf, the House has released this report. They've also released evidence that they gathered for it, and they spoke to half a dozen witnesses who they say were able to put together the story. And they also looked at text messages. They traced payments, the story of Matt Gaetz for more than 20 times paying tens of thousands of dollars toward women, either for sex or for drugs. And they're saying in those findings that it shows Matt Gaetz was engaged in commercial sex, so paying women in exchange for sex. At one point, paying a 17-year-old for sex, having sex with her at a party in 2017 in July of that year twice, and giving her $400 in cash. The committee says they believe that could be statutory rape in the state of Florida. And then also taking illicit drugs. And Wolf, these are allegations that have hung over Matt Gaetz for quite some time. He was investigated by the Justice Department and he was never charged. The committee also points out they do not believe he violated federal sex trafficking charges. And while Gaetz is denying all of these allegations against him, the committee has assembled the text messages, the payment ledger, 11 pages long. And one of the text messages I want to highlight is the sort of thing that shows women were having a general expectation of sex. That's one of the ways the committee describes it. In this text message, one woman writes, "Matt never paid me. How much did he pay you?" Another says, "He gave me $400. And then the other woman says, "Hopefully he remembers. I don't want to have to ask." The response, "Don't ask, just say it to him on Friday." Wolf, all of this is coming together.
What is going on here?
Gaetz leaves Congress. There was some internal dissent from the committee chairman about releasing this report. But even though the committee chairman says this report should not have been released when it was today, he doesn't take any issue with the findings of the House Ethics Committee.
All right, Caitlin Polantz reporting for us. Thanks very much. We're joined by our legal and political experts right now. Let me start with Scott Jennings. Scott, Matt Gaetz is a MAGA firebrand, as we all know, a close advisor, at least he was, of Trump. So this report lays out a lot of evidence of him paying women thousands and thousands of dollars for sex, including to a 17-year-old girl. Is that the MAGA brand?
Come on, man. Come on. Now they're talking about, is that the MAGA brand? Come on. Come on. Talking about, is that the MAGA brand? MAGA is Make America Great Again. It's not the MAGA brand. It's not a brand. It's a way of life. It's Make America Great Again. What are they talking about right here? Is that a MAGA brand? Of course, CNN. What was I thinking?
No, I don't think so. Certainly not the Republican brand. And as you noted in the report, he's not going to be in the president's cabinet. He's no longer in Congress. And so I don't particularly feel the need to be interested in it or defend it. To be candid with you, he's got to either deny or deal with whatever the fallout from this is. But, you know, I'm somebody who is interested in people in the Republican Party who are actually in office and actually moving forward to run the country right now. And he's not one of them.
Megan Hayes, what concerns does this report raise for you?
Look, I agree with Scott here. He's no longer in office. This is really nothing. I think that where the concern comes in is if he wants to run for office again. He floated yesterday running for governor in Florida, running for Senate in Florida. That is concerning to me. I don't think these are people we should have holding higher office. So I think that, you know, that's one of those things that is concerning to me. But I think that in terms of it being out, this is gross. These are despicable allegations, and he should be held accountable as much as he can be. But I think it's when he runs for office again is where it's concerning to the public.
Elise Adamson is with us. And Elise, you're a former federal prosecutor. Given all of this evidence that was released today, why didn't the U.S. Justice Department pursue actual charges against him? And does this report possibly reopen Gates to prosecution right now?
Those are all really good questions, Wolf. I think the first thing people need to understand is that one of the most serious allegations in this report was the statutory rape allegation, the sex with a 17-year-old girl. That is a state law charge. That is not something that would have been wrapped up in that federal investigation if it was separate from the sex trafficking, and the statute of limitations has now run on that. With respect to the potential federal charges, that would have to be trafficking. That means that Matt Gaetz would have had to bring these people, these women, over state lines for sex. And it seems from the report that that was hard to establish, especially with respect to the minor. Then the other acts of the sexual contact for money, that was all consensual. And so the federal government only tries cases where people have been taken over state lines for coercion, fraud, duress. There's some kind of abusive element that is simply missing from these allegations where it is all consensual. There's another lesser charged older statute called the Mann Act, which could sweep some of that conduct in. But again, prosecutors do not use that tool anymore when it is just consensual prostitution. Those cases are usually handled at the state level. So I have not read anything in this report that I think would invite further federal investigations. And then again, a lot of the state charges, the statute of limitations have already run.
Interesting. Scott, how does it reflect on President-elect Trump that Gaetz was
It doesn't
his first
reflect
choice
anything.
to become the Attorney General of the United States, the top law enforcement officer in the nation?
Well, it was a rough 8
Oh,
days because this stuff had been laying out there. And obviously, you know, they didn't think through the vetting that was going to go on for this kind of appointment. I mean, let's be honest. That's why it only lasted for 8 days, that and the fact that he had a number of enemies up on Capitol Hill. But to President Trump's credit, he immediately realized it, pivoted out of it, and went to Pam Bondi, who, as I understand it from the Senate and all of her meetings, is getting terrific marks on her nomination. All of her meetings are going well, and everybody's really happy with where he landed. So this was a case where started in a bad place, wound up in a good place, and the person who's ultimately going to be Attorney General is a two-term AG from Florida who's well liked across the Republican Party. So in this case, we're going to get a good outcome, even if it didn't start great.
Megan, Trump, as you know, has a long history himself of sexual misconduct allegations. His choice for defense secretary is facing sexual assault allegations. Much of Gaetz's conduct was known actually before this ethics committee report was released, when Trump wanted him to be the attorney general. What does all this say about the culture in Trump world?
Look, I think that Donald Trump cares about one thing, and that's loyalty to him. I don't think he necessarily cares about people's character or what they do in their lives or what they've been accused of. I mean, all of these allegations against Hegseth or Donald Trump or Matt Gaetz are gross and despicable, and we shouldn't have to have these people in elected office. But, you know, the president-elect cares about one thing, and that's loyalty. So that's the Republican Party's, I guess, prerogative to have that sort of leadership, but it's not something as a Democrat I would want for my party.
Elise, one woman in this House Ethics Committee report said she felt violated by Gaetz, and another said, and I'm quoting her now, "I think about it all the time," adding, "I still see him when I turn on the TV, and there's nothing anyone can do. It's frustrating to know I lived a reality that he denies. Is it possible you think these women might pursue legal action against Gates?
Yeah, well, absolutely. Just because criminal cases can no longer be filed doesn't mean that they will not file civil suits. I believe that is also something that was referenced in the House Ethics Committee report with respect to victim A, that her lawyers got in touch with former Representative Gates lawyers threatening a lawsuit, and they're perfectly entitled to. And this is a good example of victims still able to seek justice. Some people may paint it as, trying to seek money for their victimhood, but at the same time, if the justice system has failed them as it is, and many are traumatized for life, there is still legal recourse through a civil suit.
Scott, do you think Gates should be able to hold public office again?
Well, I mean, that would be up to the voters to decide. But, I've been on a few campaigns in my life, and these kinds of allegations would seem to me to be really problematic. I would also just note that, he's been something of a troublemaker in the Republican Party. I mean, he did join all the Democrats to upend the Republican Party's leadership in the last Congress and caused a protracted issue for the party. And so there have been times when not only has he caused himself personal problems like this allegations in these reports, but he's also caused the party problems as well. And so, if he runs again, the voters are going to have to take all this into consideration, just like Donald Trump had to take it all into consideration when the nomination was pulled after 8 days and he decided to go a different direction. So my suspicion is he'd have a primary if he ran somewhere, and the voters would have to figure out if they wanted somebody with this hanging over their head or somebody else.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks very, very much. Joining us now, Republican Congressman.
What do you guys think about this Matt Gaetz situation? What do you guys think about this Matt Gaetz situation? Like, it's just on another level. Like, what is going on? This guy was like golden boy 2 days ago, but now it's like all of a sudden we have text messages coming out, and now they're saying allegedly is 17 years old. That's like, I mean, these news have been like floating around for a while, but now it's like, dang.
And Senator-elect Jim Banks of Indiana. Senator-elect, thanks so much for joining us. Congratulations on your win. Last month, you said you supported Matt Gaetz for Attorney General of the United States. Has your opinion of him changed at all after this report laying out all this evidence of him paying women for sex, including a 17-year-old girl?
Well, obviously the contents of the report are serious, and Matt Gaetz likely didn't just resign from Congress, but withdrew his name for consideration to be the Attorney General. He's moved on. Congress has moved on. Donald Trump and the country have moved on. We're focused now on confirming Donald Trump's nominees to his cabinet so we can do our job in January to get this country back on the right track again. So obviously, the nature of the contents of the report are serious. They've now been made public, but Matt Gaetz deserves the right to defend himself. He will do that, but he's a private citizen, and the country expects us in Congress to focus on what matters, and that's getting the Trump agenda done that he won a mandate on Election Day to pursue.
Based on all the evidence that we now have, including this House Ethics Committee report, do you think Matt Gaetz is actually fit to serve in any future public office?
Well, look, I don't live in Matt Gaetz' state of Florida. I live in Indiana. And in Indiana, again, we're focused. Election Day showed in Indiana that we're overwhelmingly focused on advancing Donald Trump's agenda, the America First agenda. And I just got elected to the United States Senate. My job is to go to work on January 3rd. I get sworn into the Senate, and to focus on securing our border, growing our military, making our military strong again with adversaries around the world like China and others who are trying to beat America in many ways, militarily and economically. So look, Wolf, that's what I'm focused on. The report speaks for itself. If Matt Gaetz ever puts his name on the ballot again, then his voters can make that decision. He has a right to defend himself, like I said before, and I know he will do that. I served with 8 years with Matt. He's very smart. He's very talented. And I know that he will do everything that he can to clear his name, and he has a right to do that. But the contents of the report this ethics report are very serious. I expect the public to react to it in a serious way. But he's not a nominee. He's not a congressman anymore. He's a private citizen, and the country expects us to move on.
Joining us now, CNN political commentator Brad Todd, Jasmine Wright, political reporter for Notice, and CNN political commentator Van Jones. It's good to see you all. So, Jasmine, as we look at this, the fact that the House Ethics Committee had initially voted along party lines to keep this report sealed, what changed? What convinced some Republicans on the Ethics Committee to instead change their vote and release this report?
Yeah, Erica. Well, I think you're right. There was always going to be a question of whether they would, whether they not. But ultimately, two Republicans sided with Democrats to release this report. That's not, of course, the chair. The chair didn't want that out. He said it within the report. And another Democrat on that bipartisan committee. But I think what's really interesting here is that this is a committee of Matt Gaetz' peers, former peers and potentially future peers that voted to release that. They said that it was for transparency's sake, making the case that the American public deserved to know what a sitting member of Congress was accused of. Now, of course, Matt Gaetz has denied all of these allegations. In fact, kind of accused this committee of weaponizing this information that he again denies is false against him. But still, this was a group of his peers really pushing this information out into the public zeitgeist, not into the court of law, but of course, into the court of public opinion, in a really stunning example, because of course we know that Matt Gaetz resigned from Congress.
Yeah, it's such an important point, the fact that they clearly wanted this information out there, as you say, in the court of public opinion. Van, when we look at this, as recently as yesterday, you had Matt Gaetz floating the idea of another run for office, knowing this report, right, was likely coming out. Today, you have Trump ally Steve Bannon saying, quote, Gaetz has to come back, don't back down, double down. In this world that we live in, let's say Matt Gaetz does launch a potential bid for office. Does any of this serve as disqualifying in any way for voters?
Well, it used to. It would have. It's hard to know. In this environment we find ourselves now. The one thing that's very clear is, Gaetz has a lot of enemies. He had people in his own party that all they had to do was just go with their party chair, go with the committee chair and go with precedent, and this would have had to be leaked, but at least it wouldn't have been put out in this way. This lets you know this guy has PO'd some serious people in serious places that we're talking about this tonight. But does it make him a martyr or a villain to Florida voters? We'll probably find out pretty soon.
When we look at this, just because Matt Gaetz obviously withdrew that nomination for AG, it doesn't mean that there could not be a role in a Trump administration, Brad, that does not require Senate confirmation, where we could see him as a part of that administration. How do you see this report impacting those chances? To Van's point, martyr or villain, does this elevate or lower his status with Donald Trump?
Well, I think first off, his relationship with Donald Trump is from the campaign, where he was a key member of their debate prep team. So I think Donald Trump knows what he got with Matt Gaetz. Donald Trump has pulled him back after he was clear he was not going to get the votes in the Senate, and he didn't have a problem of 3 or 4 votes. He had a problem of 23 or 24 votes in the Senate that he was not going to get from Republicans. I also think you have to look at the makeup of this ethics committee. Michael Guest, who's the chairman, is a former prosecutor. You have another former prosecutor on there and a former sheriff on there just on the Republican side. These are serious people who look into these things with all due process, and they're charged with not only upholding the rules of the House, but also the reputation of the House. And they find in the report, if you read the details of the report, there are several indications that perhaps Matt Gaetz was guilty of accepting favors and gifts that violate the House gift ban. Well, that's exactly the kind of thing that the Ethics Committee is charged with enforcing. And so I think he knew he was going to have a problem with the Ethics Committee. That's why he skated out of Congress. That's why he resigned from the next Congress when he didn't even have to. He could have gone in the next Congress and waited out his nomination chances for Attorney General. But instead, he resigned from both Congresses. I think that tells you a lot. We also know Matt Gaetz didn't sit for an interview. They asked him back in July to come sit for a voluntary interview or respond to a subpoena for the Ethics Committee. He chose not to do that. Those things also tell us things about where he stands regarding the charges.
And Jasmine, when we look at all of this, what are you hearing from your sources in terms of whether or not we may hear Donald Trump weigh in publicly?
Yeah, well, what I've heard from my sources, people close to Trump, is that some are actually surprised that the report actually came out because Matt Gaetz is no longer a sitting member of Congress because the way that he resigned. But I think the question on a lot of people's minds in and around Mar-a-Lago and certainly here in DC is whether or not Trump is going to publicly come out and kind of bless this. I think what we've seen in the reality, getting to Van's first point, is that some of these Republicans live in different realities, which is that if you are a Trump loyalist, you kind of have a different playbook, and a report like this may not be as damaging as somebody who is not within Trump's favor. Now, one thing that I heard from somebody is that if he does bless Matt Gaetz, right, just hand over him, that will take a lot of political capital for the president-elect. So maybe there's a chance that if he doesn't go to OWN Network and that he doesn't go back to Congress, that he becomes a member of the administration in a seat that doesn't need to be confirmed. But there is a major question of if Trump is kind of getting all of these different guidances and reports from his advisors, which way he'll go. And I think that's kind of largely a major question here.
Yeah, we will be watching and waiting, I guess.
There may be 500.
Go ahead.
Well, there's 535 members of Congress, and there might be 3 of them that want Matt Gaetz in some kind of job in the administration. So the president-elect may factor that his unpopularity in Congress before he does anything.
We'll see. Or maybe Elon Musk will weigh in. Who knows? Oh, to be a fly on the wall. Brad, Jasmine, Van, thank you all.
Democratic Congressman Glenn Ivey of Maryland. He is a member of the House Ethics Committee. Congressman, thank you very much for your time tonight. The contents of this report are very serious. I'm hearing that from Republicans and Democrats alike today. What is the most damning thing in this report, in your opinion?
Well, I think you covered a lot of it. You know, certainly the allegations or the findings with respect to the sex with the 17-year-old are very powerful, and you know the prostitution issues and the like. I mean, there's a lot there. So it's kind of overwhelming, I think, in some ways when you read it all and put it all together. And our staff did a great job of doing a very thorough investigation and bringing us the information so we could do that, put it in the report, and allow the public to see it now.
Gaetz has responded to all of this, saying he did nothing wrong. He denies the allegations. He filed this lawsuit that I mentioned this morning, essentially trying to block its release, accusing the committee essentially of defaming him and engaging, the way he put it was an unprecedented overreach that threatens fundamental constitutional rights in releasing the report. How do you respond to him tonight?
Well, I think the point is that, you know, the report is out there now and the public can see it and review it and decide for themselves what they think. And, you know, your lead-in report mentioned, you know, other possibilities as far as, you know, whether it's Department of Justice or local law enforcement taking a look at these things too. It's available for them as well. So, you know, Mr. Gaetz has the right. He's got First Amendment rights just like anybody else. He's got a very big platform as well. He's got the right to say his view, you know, his position and give his points of view, and the public can take a listen to all of it and, you know, draw their own conclusions.
I mean, I'm sure people know your background, but before being in public office, I mean, you were a state's attorney. You have a long career in law. Do you think that local law enforcement, do you think that people should look further into potentially charging him?
Well, you're right. I do have a background as a federal prosecutor, state prosecutor, and the like. And, you know, one thing that I always tried to do and do now is to leave it to the people who are in those positions to draw their own conclusions. And sometimes they have to take a look at the evidence and decide what they have to prove as far as the elements for the statutes in their particular state, or with the Department of Justice for the federal offenses. But there's a lot there. And, you know, how they decide to move forward with it is up to them. But again, I think it was important for the public to see it and also for our colleagues to see it so they understand, you know, what the committee was doing, why it took so long, and how to conform their conduct as they go through this. One of the important parts about releasing reports is it gives guidance to our colleagues about what's over the line and what's not. And I think we tried to do that here.
Real quick, I mean, as I said, he denies the allegations. He also attacked the credibility of the witnesses that spoke to the committee. Just to put it out there, how confident are you, Congressman, in the fidelity of this report, the conclusions, the evidence you gathered?
I mean, I think the evidence is strong, and the substantial evidence finding that we reached, I think, is certainly very well supported by the evidence and the testimony of the people that you mentioned, backed up by the text messages, backed up by the financial records, and we put it all together and put it out there. So, that's my take. The bottom line, though, is what does the public decide? I always thought that sunlight is the best disinfectant. This is important for us to put that out there and give the public a chance, too, to take a look at Congress as a whole. The Ethics Committee is charged with making sure that we're doing the right thing and staying on the right track. But ultimately, we all know that the public has the final word on who comes back and who doesn't. And it's important for them to know that there's stuff like this going on in Washington.
On that note, I mean, some members of the ethics panel did not want to put out this report. As Gaetz is no longer a member of Congress, it was only described as dissenting members in the final page of the report. But here's what it said in part. The decision to publish a report after his resignation breaks from the committee's longstanding practice, opens the committee to undue criticism, and will be viewed by some as an attempt to weaponize the committee's process. Did you struggle with that?
Not so much. I mean, actually, there have been 4 instances in recent history, one per decade, actually, over the past 40 years, where the committee decided to release a report even after a member had left his service or in Congress. So I think it's appropriate here, especially given the nature of the findings that we published here. And I think, as I said, it's important for the public to see it and draw their own conclusions. So I know there were certainly colleagues that dissented, and they cited one instance that they tried to distinguish, but really didn't say anything about the other 3. And I'd note, too, that the Senate's done this as well in certain cases. So I think we're on pretty firm ground here, and I trust that, our colleagues, we've been able to work together in a very bipartisan way on this committee, dating back to, the Santos findings and that investigation, and there's a bunch of other ones that have taken place between now and then. And we've always managed to work well together in a very good and bipartisan way, and I trust we'll be able to do that moving forward.
Congressman Glenn Ivey, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yesterday, President-elect Trump gave a shout out to Gaetz. Remember, Trump had picked him to be Attorney General, but that idea went down in flames.
A friend of mine who I haven't seen in a little while, Matt Gaetz, is here. Where's Matt? He's around here someplace. Matt Gaetz. He's got a big career set up. And just want to say hello to Matt.
Now, that was before this report came out. At the same event and before the report, Gaetz himself trolled some of his critics while assessing his own future.
Many have asked which perch I will be fighting from next. My fellow Floridians have asked me to eye the governor's mansion in Tallahassee. Maybe special counsel to go after the insider trading from my former colleagues in Congress. It seems I may not have had enough support in the United States Senate. Maybe I'll just run for Marco Rubio's vacant seat in the United States Senate and join some of those folks.
So, does this report change that? My first source tonight is CNN crime and justice correspondent Katelyn Polantz. Thank you so much for being here, Katelyn, on this Christmas Eve. Can you walk us through the pages and pages of evidence that the committee found that they say backs up their report?
Yes, Sarah, that evidence that the committee is putting out there, not just in narrative form as part of this report that's about 40 pages long, but also in appendices that they've attached. They're showing things like text messages where Matt Gaetz is asking women to bring him drugs. They're showing volumes of payments on payment platforms like Venmo, Cash App, PayPal, showing women being paid hundreds of dollars from either his personal accounts or accounts affiliated with him. That looks to like 11 pages of Excel spreadsheets, essentially. And they say things in these transactions that are payments, at least 20 of them are payments for what the House believes are for sex or for drugs being made to women. The line items on them are saying things like they're for groceries, dry clean, dinner, reimbursement, relaxation, $300 at one point to the Easter Bunny, $400 for being awesome, and then $1,200 for kale. So, Sarah, that is part of the evidence, but there's also more on top of that. There are witnesses that spoke to the committee, including this woman who was 17 at the time she had sex with Matt Gaetz in 2017 when he was still a sitting congressman. She did testify to the committee and speak to them about her experience.
What more did the committee learn about Gaetz' interactions with the 17-year-old that they're saying they understood he allegedly paid for sex?
That's right. What they learned from both the woman, the girl at the time, who was the victim here, is that she was having sex with Gaetz twice at a party that they're...
Thank you for tuning into the live show. You know what time it is. Okay, I just want to ask a question. Chat. Is paying for sex crime? Is it a crime to pay for sex? Let me know.
There were other people there at one point in time that she received $400 in cash from him that evening, which she understood was to be payment for sex. The committee says they have this corroborated from other witnesses that they have. And they write then that even though Matt Gaetz was not necessarily, or saying he did not know that she was 17 at the time and never asked her age, they write that after he learned that victim A was a minor, he maintained contact, and less than 6 months after she turned 18, he met up with her again for commercial sex.
The report is out, and it also accuses him of breaking state laws and federal laws, but the federal case did not go forward. Could there be state charges in this?
Well, Sarah, that is a question for the state of Florida and investigators there. We know that the federal government did investigate Matt Gaetz for the possible violation of federal sex trafficking laws. They did not charge him with any crime, declined to charge him. The House Ethics Committee then picked up their investigation. And in the report today, they, too, did not find evidence to conclude he may have violated federal sex trafficking laws. But on the state question, what the House found is that they believe that he may have committed statutory rape when he had sex with this girl in 2017, and that could be in violation of Florida's law. They also say that they think it's possible he may have lied to them, made false statements, or tried to obstruct this congressional investigation. But what happens next? Those are questions for authorities that we just won't know the answer to yet.
And we certainly know that Matt Gaetz is talking about trying to run for office in Florida, certainly before this report came out, but he is saying he has done nothing wrong. Caitlin Polantz, thank you so much. I want to bring in my political sources tonight, senior advisor to Hillary Clinton's 2016 presidential campaign, Karen Finney, and former senior advisor to Senator Mitch McConnell, Scott Jennings. Thank you both for being here. Scott, let's start with you. Gaetz slamming the report, defending himself in online posts, and here's one where he claims, quote, giving funds to someone you are dating that they didn't ask for and that isn't charged for sex is now prostitution, and that he was never charged with a crime. Gaetz has repeatedly framed the Justice Department's decision not to charge him as an exoneration. We know that that isn't how this works. No prosecutor has actually come out to clear Gaetz, but he was never charged. What do you make of all of this and the fact that the ethics report is out and it has got some really damning information in it?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be candid with you. I don't make much of it because most of the details or most of the stories that we heard, we already knew. I mean, a lot of this stuff was already swirling in the public domain anyway. Number two, Matt Gaetz is no longer in Congress. Number three, Matt Gaetz is no longer under consideration to be in Donald Trump's cabinet. As far as I'm concerned, he's a private citizen in Florida, and I'm sure he has a story to tell about this. And if he runs for office again, he'll have to, explain what's in this report, and we'll see what the voters say about this. But honestly, of all the things that happened in Washington, D.C. today, to me, this is a low priority when you consider what Joe Biden did over at the White House, commuting all the sentences of these terrible people using the power of the presidency. He's still in office. Gaetz is gone, and yet there seems to be more outrage about Gaetz over stuff that, frankly, is old news.
Well, there's a lot of information that has come out that, frankly, people didn't know about, including, I know the talk of statutory rape, but that the Ethics Committee found this, is significant. And we will talk about what Joe Biden did in just a bit with those commutations. Karen, I want you to listen to what Representative Glenn Ivey, a Democrat who sits on the House Ethics Committee, said to CNN's Kate Baldwin tonight. Listen.
I think the evidence is strong, and the substantial evidence finding that we reached, I think, is certainly very well supported by the evidence and the testimony of the people that you mentioned, backed up by the text messages, backed up by the financial records, and we put it all together and put it out there. So, that's my take. The bottom line, though, is what does the public decide?
Everyone knows that the Ethics Committee is not a court of law, but it is about the ethics of a member of Congress and whether or not it is appropriate. Given, though, that the report has no real legal teeth, is this an attempt to sort of win the battle of public perception or something else?
That may be part of it, but I think there are a couple of reasons why this report actually matters. And Scott is a great communicator. He did a really lovely job there trying to diminish the importance of this. But there's a couple of things that do matter. Number one, remember that when Donald Trump initially nominated Gates, he was talking about recess appointments, which would have meant that Gates would not have had to go through any kind of formal hearing. And there was he was pressing that the report not be released. I say that because it is a reminder. This is why the hearings for each of these cabinet nominees matters. It's important that every single one of those individuals go through the process. I think Trump has finally come around to realizing they're not going to let him get away with just trying to shove some of this stuff under the rug and pass these people through. I mean, imagine someone like Matt Gaetz as the Attorney General of the United States of America. I mean, he is a disgusting sleazeball. And secondly, I think it's important, and I heard some of the members, I was reading with some of their comments, I think they felt that this was damaging enough that it was important that younger members, newer members understand that there is accountability and that this kind of behavior is inappropriate. One of the things I didn't know that I read in the report, he actually created a fake email account from his office in the Capitol, which he was using to buy drugs. I mean, not only is that stupid, it's incredibly inappropriate and not someone who should be serving, certainly not in Congress. And I think it's important that we hold leaders accountable. Unfortunately, we have a convicted felon as president, so we missed that vote. But again, I think there's some very important facts that came out today that are very relevant.
Yo, man, these people sleazebags.
Created a fake email account from his office in the Capitol, which he was using to buy drugs. I mean, not only is that stupid, it's incredibly inappropriate and not someone who should be serving, certainly not in Congress. And I think it's important that we hold leaders accountable. Unfortunately, we have a convicted felon as president, so we missed that vote. But again, I think there's some very important facts that came out today that are very relevant.
This is a bipartisan, the Ethics Committee is bipartisan, and I think it's evenly split. So a Republican would have had to have voted to release this report. I'm curious from you, Scott, because you mentioned the possibility that Gates might run for office. Does he have a political future in the world that we live in now?
Well, a couple of things. Number one, listening to Karen's explanation of this, I just want to remind everyone, Matt Gaetz is no longer in Congress. Matt Gaetz is no longer under consideration for being in the cabinet. Matt Gaetz is not going to be recess appointed to anything. I feel like there's an effort today to make it feel like, we're, 6 weeks ago. We're living in the now. The now is, after he thought about it, Donald Trump dumped Matt Gaetz and got Pam Bondi, and she's going to be an amazing attorney general. And Matt Gaetz thought better of it, and he resigned from Congress, and we'll see what he does. Regarding his political future, I mean, anybody can run. The voters have to look at your whole record and decide what to do. I would assume, I'm no super genius, but I would assume having a report like this hanging out there over your head, you'd have to explain it, when you ran for Congress, and it would probably be problematic if some of the other people involved in the report came forward. But, that's for him to decide, and I really have no idea what he's going to do.
Okay. Everybody's coming after Matt Gaetz, yet Hunter Biden was pardoned by his father, who happens to be the 46th president of the United States. But nobody's talking about that. Everybody's now talking about Matt Gaetz. Nobody's talking about the drones in New Jersey. Nobody's talking about the Panama Canal now. Nobody's talking about the border anymore. Nobody's talking about all of this stuff going on. Everybody's now Matt Gaetz. But Hunter filmed himself taken. Okay? He was taken. Hunter was on live taken, filmed. Hunter is like the ultimate playboy. He filmed every process of it, yet was pardoned. Yeah. You can never make this up, guys. Never.
Breaking right now, the House Ethics Committee has just released its report on Matt Gaetz. Let's get to Chad Pergram on Capitol Hill. Hey, Chad.
Julie, good morning. It's a 37-page report, and the committee claims that there is, quote, substantial evidence that Gaetz violated House rules. The committee says Gaetz was involved in prostitution, statutory rape, and the use of illicit drugs. Now, it says that Gaetz had sex with multiple women at a party in Florida in 2017 and paid them as prostitutes. The committee says that Gaetz also had sex with a then 17-year-old girl. The report says that victim received $400 from Gaetz. The committee says she did not tell Gaetz how old she was. She had just completed her junior year in high school. Now, Gaetz is suing to block the release of the report. His effort for an injunction says information in the report is, quote, false. It adds that the reputation of Gaetz, quote, would be immediate, severe, and irreversible. Some Gaetz allies criticized the Ethics Committee.
It's a report. It is not a court of law. I think it's vindictive in nature. I just don't see what the point in all this is. A couple of old-timers are going to cackle about it. And again, it's not been proven. This is just a report.
I like the fact that this man breaks it down. It is a report. It has not been proven in the court of law, but this is how the game is played. Politics is dirty. Okay, it is absolutely dirty. This ain't sweet game. If you're into politics, you know it is a dirty game. But the 17-year-old girl did not say she was 17. So who allowed her into a party? She probably had a fake ID as well.
House Speaker Mike Johnson opposed releasing the report since Gaetz is no longer a member. The House twice rejected 2 Democratic motions to force the release of the report. Now, the feds cleared Gaetz of wrongdoing earlier this year. Gaetz admits to what he termed, quote, embarrassing behavior. Back to you.
Chad Pergram, thank you very much.
It is what it is. It is absolutely what it is. If he really wants to do it the right way, it should go on his podcast or whoever, like a Joe Rogan. He should probably go on a Joe Rogan podcast. And maybe not a Joe Rogan, maybe like a Theo Vaughn's podcast and say his own story and let people decide. Because now the people are the judge and the jury. The people decide. Because the people decided that the 45th should as well be the 47th. Okay? If it was based on a selected few, Trump would never be the president of the United States right now. But the people decided that, you know what? We do not care about whatever charges you guys are bringing up against this guy. We are voting for him. So Matt should go on the offense. Okay, he should go out there, speak about his own story, what actually happened, and what they're trying to do to him. If he goes on the offense, he's probably gonna be some sort of a hero to a lot of people.
All right, Donald Trump not wasting any time mapping out his return to the White House. The president-elect giving his first rally-style speech since winning re-election, telling thousands of his supporters his plans to ring in the golden age of America.
We're going to give them the best day one, the biggest first week, and the most extraordinary first 100 days of any president in American history. The golden age of America is upon us. They're calling it the Trump effect because even before taking office, we're already bringing in the jobs and opportunity and safety and common sense back to the USA. Your border is a disaster, what's going on. And you just have a few days to wait. We're going to be fully operational, I would say, by about 2 o'clock on the 20th. We're being ripped off at the Panama Canal like we're being ripped off everywhere else. This complete rip-off of our country will immediately stop. Woke has to stop because along with everything else, it's destroying our country. Woke is bull.
Yeah. Tyrus beat that out at the last minute. Thank you, Tyrus. And as Trump lays out his plans for the next 4 years, most Americans appear to be on board. A new Fox poll shows that 55% of voters are hopeful for the country's future compared to 43% 3 years ago. That includes Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman, who is actually calling out members of his own party who are rooting against the president-elect.
I'm not rooting against him. If you're rooting against the president, you are rooting against the nation.
Facts.
And I'm not ever going to be where I want a president to fail. So country first. I know it's become maybe like a cliche, but it happens to be true.
I love it. I wish more people felt the same way. Well, let's start off, Kellyanne, if we can. Some of the things the president went over is I'd like Greenland. I'll take back the Panama Canal.
Fetterman, let me tell y'all something.
Change your.
Fetterman will be a big problem for the Republican Party. If he stays in the Democratic Party or in the Democrat Party, he is going to be a huge problem for the Republicans. Say, for example, he wins the nominee to become the next president of the United States. He is going to be some force to reckon with because he's sort of like a moderate. A lot of people, and now he's kind of like building his foundation. Okay, he's building that foundation whereby a lot of people are listening to what he's saying and they're realizing that this guy is not far left. He's actually a common sense guy. He's sort of kind of like a Republican because he's moderate. He adds the common sense, wisdom. So it's like if he wins the nominee for the presidential seat for the Democrat Party, he's going to be some force to reckon with. I don't think AOC would be a problem compared to Fetterman. Or he might just be joining the Republican Party just like Tulsi Gabbard.
Fee schedule. Iron Dome for the country. How about deport criminal aliens, finish the wall, and death to DEI? It was a pretty good speech.
Pretty good speech. I think in part because of President Trump and his victory, DEI is DOA. Lots of companies unraveling their programs. They found out they're super expensive, super counterproductive. You're telling people already who like each other, work together, invest in each other's lives, personal and professionally, that they're actually racist and xenophobic and sexist and all the rest. But Donald Trump's having fun. I think that this is where the country wants to be now, optimistic, forward-looking, hopeful. There was another round of focus groups done by a Democratic firm, and they discovered that among Democratic rank-and-file voters, many of them couldn't even bring themselves to vote for Kamala Harris. They looked at her as inauthentic, inaccessible, negative, not particularly competent, phony, phonetically challenged.
Everybody knows she wasn't
particularly
competent.
working hard, doing well as vice president, and so on and so forth. So I think you see these two contrasts, and people made their choice. Look, President Trump, when he gets up and he does these rally-like speeches, he's actually giving you his list of priorities, and people should listen. I think the most fascinating thing happening right now, whether it's in the form of Panama or Denmark or Greenland, Mexico and Canada, is President Trump using tariffs for a third reason. Traditionally, they're used to raise revenue, they're used to protect vital American industries. He's now saying, I'm going to use them as a tool and a bargaining tool to compel or incentivize your behavior as a nation on other things. Pay your NATO dues, get your criminals and your drugs out of our country. Start participating so that this country is not paying more, not paying our fair share and everybody else's unfair share as well. So I think it's fantastic, and people already look at him as the president. We have a president commuting sentences and letting criminals who murdered children not be on death row anymore. And we've got the other one telling you what he's going to do in the first week. He said the first week, first month, first 100 days will be active in a way that this country has never seen.
No, I hear you. Also, Lisa, you brought up, hey, Mount McKinley, we're bringing it back. He's bringing up Eisenhower. He's bringing up Teddy Roosevelt. He's hearkening back. Actually, Andrew Johnson was the first one to try to get Greenland. So Trump was on his game. He seemed to be enjoying himself yesterday. I never remember
the fact that the future commander-in-chief in a couple of days, probably like 27 days from now, this guy right here is suggesting that he wants to take control of Greenland. He wants to also take back control of Panama Canal. This is alpha type movement. I foresee that what he's trying to do is pass a message to the world leaders like Kim Jong-un, what's his name, Xi Jinping, everybody worldwide. They're listening to this guy. They're seeing his truth post, and they're seeing like this man right here is talking about taking over Greenland, taking over Panama Canal, taking over Canada. It's like, this is the biggest whale in the ocean, because nobody dares talk about take over Canada. This is blue whale type movement in the ocean. It's like everybody else, you better be swimming somewhere else, because I am the biggest whale in the ocean. This is what Trump is communicating to the world. This is my opinion, okay? I think he is just communicating to the world that the United States is the largest animal in the sea. So don't come close, because I'm taking over Greenland, taking over Panama Canal, and of course, the 51st state, Canada. And Justin Trudeau is about to be the 51st governor. I suggest that he's doing this just to show. It's a show of strength, That's what I think.
Remember him smiling so much.
Well, I think he's excited. I mean, you see the love for Donald Trump. It's not just 2016 love. I mean, this is pre-president love for Donald Trump when he was an American icon, a titan of success, beloved by the rest of America. But, Trump has said that success will unite the country, but so has Joe Biden's failures. Right? I mean, we're united behind that. We had to be hit in the face with failure to recognize that we had a good thing going. Well, we didn't, but a lot of Americans did. And if you look back and look at some of the resistance that Donald Trump faced when he headed into 2017, the Steele dossier was published by BuzzFeed 10 days before he was sworn in. Right? And so if he was able to accomplish as much as he did during his first term with that active resistance, Russia, for 4 terms, impeachment, the special counsel investigation, all of that. Think about what he's going to do now that he has the American people behind him, now that he has the popular vote behind him, now that he has defeated the resistance, defeated the media, and was able to bypass them as an outsider that he was with the trip to McDonald's, with podcasts, and et cetera. So I think the golden age is upon us, and that's what we're going to see these next 4 years.
I think we know exactly what he wants to do, getting out of the box. I think he's going to be strong. You know what he also pointed out, Tyrus? Young people voted for him.
Yes.
And most of the young people were in that audience yesterday, and they were pumped up to see him. Yeah. But it wasn't the same rally feel. I felt like it was. He had guest speakers. Horatio Marin was there, whose daughter was killed by illegal immigrants. And then you had Ted Cruz pop up there, Tom Homan. But I felt like he was laying out a format instead of saying what I promise.
Well, I think that one of the cool things is I'm hoping that he adds the Cayman Islands to the pickup.
Just for you personally.
Just for me personally.
Tired of using the visa.
Or, if he's looking for an ambassador for Cayman Islands, I might know a guy.
Right.
But this euphoric
Herschel locked up Bahamas.
Yeah, well, he can have it.
Yeah.
The water's not as clear.
Gotcha.
I digress. The thing is that you don't need a poll right now to step out and see how Americans are feeling. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone's optimistic. And I think the biggest additive, the most to his success is the fact that he's bringing in people from all walks of the political spectrum. And so everyone feels they have somebody in the game. And then he comes out with these rallies and they're super positive and he's feeling good. I got a feeling these rallies are going to keep going, where he's going to check in and let everybody know how it's going. And the fact that he's got the other side so rattled because he's not going after Democrats. He's going after that old guard, the people who are try to do the old things to get him, like, oh, he's co-president. Those things aren't going to work anymore. He's battle tested. He's survived 2 assassination attempts, maybe more that we know of. He sees life a lot slower now. He understands what's important and not. It's not about grievances. You're not going to get him out and say, I'm the only true president. Elon and Vivek, get out of here. Those days are over. He's seen it. No, we're seeing it. Yeah. He would not have he doesn't have the kingmaker anymore like he did the first time to calm him down. We got her. but he's using that experience. It's when you hear him talk, it's not an anger, it's not a frustration, and the American people are feeling it. Everywhere I go, it's the same thing. It's like, we got this, good things are happening, and we like to see the corruption side of politics nervous.
Make America fun again.
Harold, when I heard Fetterman speak, even though you have a much better wardrobe, I thought I was hearing Harold Ford. I'm still a Democrat, but I'm going to work with him where I can.
Well, first of all, Merry Christmas, everybody. Good to be haven't seen you guys in a little while. Seen Towers. I hope you get to Cayman Islands. It will be great for all of us here. Just speaking, not personally, but just
President might be watching.
We'll visit. I get it,
It'll be in the next.
You can't not root for the president when you're in the middle of a transition. Even after an election, voters have spoken.
And this is something that I respect about some Democrats that are saying that, you know what, I didn't vote for Trump. Okay, however, I am supporting him now that he is the 47th president-elect. Because what are you going to do? So for the next 4 years, you are going to, essentially complain and say, well, he's not my president. Is that what you're going to do for the next 4 years? Or are you going to just rally behind him and say, you know what? I hope he makes the right decisions. I hope he stands by his words. There are things that I don't agree with him, but I hope it just makes sure America is safe, border is safe, foreign policy is safe, okay, and nobody invades. That should be your concern. Like, it shouldn't be, well, everybody's gonna see now that look who you voted for. That shouldn't be what you should be praying for. Like, we've gotten to a stage that people are now praying for the failure of a candidate they did not support, especially when they win. That's just bad. That's absolutely bad. So you're saying your hatred for Trump trumps your love for America. Is that what you're trying to say? You're trying to say you hate Trump more than you love America? Nah, you have to love America more than you hate Trump, and that's it.
I think people elected this president on a couple of grounds. One, they want the border fixed, and some around the table have mentioned that. They want this issue of drugs and crime, drugs coming across the border, the crime coming with it. They want it tamed. I think a lot of voters in those battleground swing states made that very clear. Two, they want the cost of things to come down, their groceries, insurance, housing. This was a basic election in that regard, is that people made a calculation on that. And the president campaigned on resolving things around the globe. We found ourselves entangled in places that we needed to be because our interests were at stake, interests were being threatened. And the president said he's going to find ways to fix it. He has put together the most diverse cabinet from an ideological standpoint we've seen in the last 30 years. You have union supporters in there. You have Democrats in there. Who would have thought a Kennedy would have been supporting the Republican and a Cheney would have been supporting the Democrats in this election? But that's where we are. I didn't hear a lot about Greenland in the election. So I understand. I think the president is
Panama Canal.
in the Panama Canal. Perhaps it has. You can weave that into something bigger. But I think the calculation voters made, particularly Democrats and these young voters and black voters and Hispanic voters and Asian voters who went for the president in larger numbers than we've seen those demographics go for a Republican. I think they're looking for the president to address those three sets of issues. And I'm rooting for him to have success on those three sets of issues. If he does not, like our political system always works, and Kellyanne and Tyrus and Lisa, Brian, we all know this, that's where the tension will begin to build. But I hope if the president is willing to work with people and he's willing to do the things, is going to do the things he said he's going to do, there's one Democrat sitting at this table, and I think even in Pennsylvania that we saw interviewed there, who will say, Mr. President, hail, let's keep.
That's the facts. This is something that I do believe in my soul. He is going to safeguard, secure the border via Tom Homan. Tom Homan is going to be the tool to make sure that part is secured. And also foreign policy. Vladimir Putin and Zelensky. I think his name is Vladimir Zelensky too. Right? What is his name? What is Zelensky's full name? Let's check. Zelensky. What's his full name? Vladimir Volodymyr Zelensky. Okay, so Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky, both of them, when Trump gets in there and settles this whole situation, it's like everybody would already realize that this is what we have been waiting for, because those are the major key issues he campaigned on: the border, the wars, inflation. Basically, those are like the major three things. Because inflation, if he brings inflation down, then the United States would be great again, because everybody would have some money in their pocket. You don't have to pay way too much for things that are not supposed to cost that high. And of course, energy price. He said it was going to slash that in a year into half, by 50%. And he also said he was going to cap interest rate at 10% for credit cards. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime. These are key issues. I feel like if he does implement these things in the first 6 months, he already won. He already won for the rest of his administration. But if he doesn't, and maybe get distracted by some BS by a lot of people, because they're not gonna let him rest. Now they've started the new sort of kind of like the new rhetoric, President Musk. So if he dwells on that, then it's gonna be an issue. And everybody knows Musk was born in Pretoria, South Africa. He wasn't born in the United States. He could never be the United States president. It's impossible. You have to be born in the United States to become the president of the United States. Newsflash. Is that like something you didn't know? Because people just like doing too much.
Welcome back, America. We're here with a dear friend of mine, Stephen A. Smith. And Stephen A. Smith and I met many years ago at a radio event.
Yeah.
And as I recall, Stephen A., you can correct me if I'm wrong, and I know you will. You came up to me and you said, I'm a fan of yours. I don't always agree with you.
That's right.
But I like the way you do radio. And I said, there's the great Stephen A. Smith.
Yes.
He's a fan of mine.
Yes.
And we've been friends ever since. We don't agree on everything, but we are very agreeable. And so this is what I wanted to ask you.
Mm-hmm.
More and more, you're in the world of non-sports. You're talking about current events and talking about politics, philosophy, whatever, which is a good thing. And I noticed the other day you're talking about it, and you don't line up with one party or another. You don't really line up with one philosophy or another. And you're kind of calling out Democrats and saying, you got to get with your program. You got to fix what you're doing. You can't keep doing what you're doing, and you're going to lose. And you took a lot of hell. So my question to you is this. Isn't this kind of stereotypical that people expect a sports guy, a black guy on ESPN to toe the line or else? And yet, you know what? Because of you, I watch more and more ESPN, and I don't find that to be the case at all. I find a lot of different opinions and a lot of different guys in a lot of different areas. But isn't that problematic?
It's problematic, but I wouldn't confine it to the world of sports. I think that the Democratic Party have been very adroit and skilled up until recently in really coming across as if they have this high moral ground to stand on and essentially guilting people into believing whatever it is that they're singing about. And I think that ship has sailed now. I think that with these latest election results, the American people have spoken. There's no way around that. When you consider the fact that Donald Trump won all the swing states, that he basically elevated his cachet in every demographic that you can find. He won the popular vote as well as the electoral college vote. It was an indictment against the Democratic Party. They went too far left. They ignored the common sense, middle of the road, sensible voter as far as I'm concerned. I don't believe that most of American citizens are on the fringes, whether it's extreme right or left. I think most of us, whether it's center right or center left, want to be in a position to compromise. We want to see people communicating with one another, getting along with one another and expressing their levels of disagreements. In other words, disagreeing without being disagreeable per se. And we didn't see that. And as a result, when you engage in demagoguery and fear-mongering, and that's your battle cry in order for you to receive votes, the American people said enough of that nonsense, and I'm happy about that. And so the fact that I speak up about that and people attack me, you know me well enough, Mark. Like you said, you and I go back about 20 years now. I could give less than a damn about them attacking me or whatever the case may be. I'm a fair-minded individual. I'm going to call balls and strikes like I see it. And I think that this, just like in 2020, one could argue that folks did not vote for Biden. They voted against Trump. I think in this case, it wasn't about voting for Trump. It was about voting against the left and how extreme they became and how hypocritical their message was ultimately absorbed to be by the American people. That is why they lost this election, and that's why Donald Trump is going back into the White House.
When we come back, my question to you, Stephen A. Smith, is this. You say you probably voted. I think you voted for Kamala Harris.
I did.
Could you see yourself, looking back on this, watching how Trump is conducting himself, watching his views, common sense, he says, that's my philosophy, it's common sense, reaching out to an awful lot of people on the Democrat side, even on the left. Could you now see yourself today voting for Donald Trump when we come back?
Whoa, 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 whoa. That is going to be tricky because, look, if you have this skin and you haven't crushed out or crushed over or gone out of the plantation, then you cannot publicly say, you know what, yeah, I'm going to vote for Trump, especially like a man of his caliber. But let's listen to what he's going to say, though.
Seeing what you see now, and obviously Donald Trump can't run for president again, but if he could, under the current circumstances, could you see yourself voting for him?
Quite possibly. I'm not going to sit up there and dismiss that anymore. I think we're beyond that. He would have to prove a lot, Mark. And I'm not talking about policy now for a second. Allow me to say this. What concerned me about Donald Trump and the reason I voted against him and voted for Kamala Harris was because I felt that he would be divisive, that he would create chaos because he demands such a level of loyalty and fealty to him. And that would take priority over governing our nation. That was my concern. And so I'm looking for both sides to work across the aisle from one another. Having said that, when you see some of the things that he said, if he follows through on some of the things that he has said, it's not just about eradicating inflation, improving the economy, obviously controlling our borders. These are all things that I care about, make no mistake about that, and I certainly would support him in that regard. But it can't be just about fealty to him and loyalty to him. It has to be about getting the job done on behalf of what's in the best interest 100%. Of the American people, as opposed to yourself, and not engaging in a kind of juvenile tendencies, tweeting all the time and going after people who are really much irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. You do things like that and you show that you're the adult in the room, yeah. I don't think anybody could dismiss Donald Trump at this particular moment in time, not just because of him, but because of what we've seen the Democrats do. We're not falling for it any longer. The American people aren't falling for it any longer. I voted Democrat, and I got to tell you something right now. I don't like the fact that I did. I don't like what I'm seeing. I don't want to hear about, oh, we're about law. We're about a law. Nobody's above the law. Nobody's above the law. But then you go out and you pardon your son and you try to blame everybody else for it. I don't want to hear about defund the police. I don't want to hear about, you know what, there should be open borders. I don't want to hear this stuff. And I don't think most of the American people want to hear that. We're thinking about the state of affairs that's in. We're not about America only, but being about America and prioritizing what's going on in this nation with the desolate and the disenfranchised and everybody else in between, and looking out for the best interests of what it is for America. That is not a crime for an American politician or a commander-in-chief or a senator or a congressional figure to have that mentality. I want them to have that mentality. So I think about things along those lines. And I'm no longer interested in, nor do I believe any of us should be interested in listening to a bunch of fear-mongering to tell us who we shouldn't vote for. Why don't you come up with a plan that tells us why we should vote for you? That's what I'm interested in.
Exactly. Okay. Nobody cares about why you are saying or suggesting we shouldn't vote for this other candidate. Tell us why we should be voting for you. Why should we be voting for you, dog? That's it. Okay? All your fear-mongering is not going to work. Moving forward, it's not going to work. because Trump has changed the political landmark in the United States. Okay? He's changed it. The trajectory has changed. The narration has changed. The narrative has changed. Like, it has fully changed. You cannot come out here and just say sweet words. It's not going to work. It's absolutely not going to work. It's not going to work, guys. You have to be relatable, authentic, skillful, a good communicator, down to earth, come down from your high horse and talk to the truckers, the construction workers, the plumbers, the HVAC technicians, the welders. You have to do those things. The bartenders, you have to talk to people. And that's what Trump did. The barbers, this is what Trump did. And Kamala was just copying him every step of the way. And that's why people saw that there's no way I'm voting for this lady right here.
In, and if Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, Byron Donald, Marco Rubio, or the host of other Republican candidates coming down the pike, that's the kind of message that they're going to put forth. I'm down for it. I'm open-minded enough to make sure that I entertain that from a policy perspective. That's what I want for the American people. That's what I want for this nation.
That's why we love you, my man. Now, one quick question. I don't have a lot of time left.
Sure.
There you have it. There you have it. There you have it. Stephen A. Smith is not playing around. Everybody's waking up right now. Everybody's waking up right now. It is what it is. It's not racial politics anymore. It's common sense. And who can actually get the job done, who can deliver. That's who we're voting in moving forward. That's it. Next.
A Fox News alert right now. NYPD
now, what's going on with this
sources
guy?
tell us an illegal immigrant is in custody after allegedly setting fire.
I don't know if you guys heard about this guy in New York on the subway. He allegedly set a woman straight up on fire. It's like, what in the world is... Yeah, absolutely. Christian says the mechanics. Of course. Of course. You have to come down from your high horse and talk to every single person. If you cannot do that, then you cannot be the president of the United States. Okay? Bye. So what's up with this guy that allegedly set someone on... Is just ridiculous. They set them on fire on the subway in New York. And now they're saying, NYPD source says this is an illegal migrant. Another win for the illegal migrant criminals. This is another win right here for them. Because this is total BS.
Yes, setting fire to a woman in a New York City subway. We must warn you, this video is graphic. We're going to show you once so you know what we're talking about. The NYPD accusing him of approaching a woman sleeping on a stationary train and lighting her clothes on fire with a lighter earlier yesterday before sitting on a bench and watching her burn to death. Our next guest was just in New York City earlier this month, meeting with Mayor Adams about the...
What kind of mindset do you think you would have to be able to watch someone, a human being, a woman, that has flesh and blood burn? What is this? What is going on, guys? Yeah, this is terrifying, everybody. I feel like he needs... Like here, that guy right there, that guy who sat down by the subway, he needs one right here. That's what he needs.
Legal immigrant crisis. Incoming border czar Tom Homan. Tom, I know you were in Phoenix. You were caught up in the big speech yesterday and the president's first extensive remarks about his agenda. But from what I just told you, what are your thoughts?
Well, look, this is another example of an illegal alien killing American citizens. It's almost a daily occurrence now. You know, because historic number of criminal aliens walking the streets because of this administration's policy in sanctuary jurisdictions and lax immigration enforcement. ICE has their hands tied. Secretary Mayorkas have given them priorities that they can't even go arrest an illegal alien anymore unless he's convicted of a serious crime. Then maybe they can arrest him. So this is on this administration. As far as Governor Hochul, shame on her. She supports sanctuary status in that state. She welcomed thousands of illegal aliens to her state. She sent them to Buffalo and Syracuse. Murders occurred by illegal aliens in Buffalo and Syracuse. She has a green light law. ICE and CBP can't even work with local law enforcement. Local law enforcement can't even share DMV data with these people. So Governor Hochul, shame on you. There's nothing you can say that's going to make this right in New York.
All right. You didn't get a chance to see Secretary Mayorkas in his exit interview on CBS. Talked about how proud he is that the border is down to 50,000. So the problem is virtually solved. Here's what he said, though, when pressed by Margaret Brennan about how he loses track of children. Watch.
We certainly have received reports of children being trafficked, even those as to whom we know where they are. That is outside the responsibility of the Department of Homeland Security. Of course, we investigate cases of trafficking. But there are children who are reunited with a parent here in the United States or a legal guardian, and they move, and sometimes the government loses track.
So does that explain everything? What should I know about his statement?
It's nothing but lies. Nothing but lies. Border numbers aren't down. They're just putting them through the CBP One app and the CHNV app. You add those programs together, what Border Patrol's catching the gotaways, we're still at historic numbers. They were bragging the other day that ICE has over 247,000 removals, the most in a decade. No, they don't. If you look at the data, 80% of them were Border Patrol apprehensions that ICE just simply put across the border. ICE interior enforcement numbers are historic lows. And as far as the children, another lie. Under his guidance, under his leadership, first of all, it's his policies that caused over 500,000 of children being smuggled in this country, trafficking in this country, and they lost track with 340,000 of them. His lips are moving, he's lying, and he needs to be held accountable. Nothing he said in that interview is truthful.
And the thing is, Tom, it's not because he's naive. He knows he's not telling the truth. He worked for you. He was down there before, and he'll go ahead and implemented these problems and these policies anyway. And he also knew who to blame. Listen to this.
Summer of last year, border crossings were at record highs. Now they've dropped to the lowest level of the Biden administration. How much of that drop-off is because Mexico is now stopping migrants from even getting to that southern border of the United States?
That is critically one element of it. It is not the only element of it. The president took executive action in June of this year. That has been a key driver of the low number of encounters at our border. We are now delivering to the incoming administration a southern border at which the number of individuals encountered is well below the level experienced in 2019, the last year before the pandemic.
Your thoughts about this?
Another lie. The numbers are not down like they claim they are because they've taken thousands of illegal aliens.
Tom Homan says another lie. This is another lie. Okay? Like, you literally seen people that came into the United States illegally commit crime in your city, and you have mouth to say something. You should be ashamed. Okay? Covering your face and ashamed and just going down and saying, you know what, that's it. We have to settle down and make sure all of this illegal immigrant are out of the United States. In New York at first, because you're responsible for New York. I mean, who would sit down by the subway and watch another human being burn? Jesus, come on, man.
Aliens, bring them to our city, straight to the airports under the CHNV program, straight into our airports from countries. Same illegal alien population, but they divide them in 3 buckets. Let's bring thousands to our airports through CHNV. Let's bring thousands a day to the CBP One app, and we're still catching thousands a day by the Border Patrol. He's lying. They take the same illegal alien population, divide them in 3 different buckets. So the encounters are not down to historic levels, like you said. And bottom line is, it isn't about the number of people you deport, it's about the number of people you release in this country. Over 8 million illegal aliens you release in this country, and that's why we have the crime rate we have today, and that's why, look, you know who's going to fix this whole problem? President Trump's going to fix this issue, because we're going to shut the border down, we're going to have the largest deportation operation this country's ever seen, and we will find over 340,000 children that you lost track of, that you released to unvetted sponsors. Many are in sex trafficking, many in forced labor. We will rescue those children that you traffic into the United States.
Lastly, is this whole thing because of worldwide migration, and they just happen to be president, and he happens to be in office when this migration was just moving around the planet?
Look, under President Trump, we had historic lows in illegal migration. We had the most secure border in our lifetime. They came into office and purposely, by design, unsecured the border, wrote 90 executive orders abolishing everything we did to give us the most secure border in our lifetime. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't his management. This was on purpose. He needs to be held accountable.
So the illegal immigrants pride themselves on knowing American politics and knowing how to work it. I hope they're watching now. And the word is, if they are, they will turn around and they'll go back home because they're not getting in. Tom Homan, thank you.
This is just absolutely wild because, oh man, come on, man. Come on. This is sad to see, sad to hear that this is happening in New York. I actually love New York. I'm not even going to cap. I love New York because schooled in New York. The first city that I actually arrived in is New York. New York is just special to me. So I was taking the subway every single day for like 3 months straight. So I know the subway like the back of my hands. Like, come on, why would you be on the subway and then commit that kind of atrocity? That is just absolutely bonkers and just unbelievable. Okay, it's unbelievable. What's going on, man?
Tonight, a closer look at President-elect Donald Trump's first rally-like speech since winning the election. Trump made a wide range of remarks on immigration, the Panama Canal, and even Elon Musk. Here's some of what the former president and now the president-elect said at a conservative conference in Arizona on Sunday.
The victory was such an outstanding one, such a big one. And the other side now, they lost their confidence. If you watch television now, they're all befuddled. They don't know what the hell happened. We will demand that the Panama Canal be returned to the United States of America in full, quickly, and without question. When you look at like autism from 25 years ago, and you look at it now, something's going on, and I nominated Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Is something wrong? I think so. And Robert and I and all, we're going to figure it out. President Trump has ceded the presidency to Elon Musk. No.
Elon.
That's not happening. But no, he's not going to be president, that I can tell you. And I'm safe. You know why? He can't be. He wasn't born in this country.
I want to bring in the former Trump senior advisor, Anthony Scaramucci. Anthony, thanks very much for joining us. You got a smile on your face right now. It looks like the President Musk jokes are getting a bit under Trump's skin. Anthony, you were once a key part of Trump's inner circle in the White House. Do you see their relationship turning sour anytime soon?
This is all they wanted.
Like it, but I think what's happening is he's also knows that a lot of the stuff coming from the left is premeditated, and so that's what's shielding him for right now. But he won't like it. The more attention Elon gets, if there's a problem, he'll look to blame Elon or somebody else on his team. You know, if you just look at what's going on with Speaker Johnson right now, prior to getting that spending bill passed, they were calling him a Democrat. So, you know, it's a perilous situation. There's a honeymoon period going on right now. But trust me, he doesn't like it. He wouldn't be bringing it up if it didn't bother him, Wolf. he wouldn't be bringing it up. And so, it's like Shakespeare, doubt does protest too much.
Yeah, good point. We saw how much influence Elon Musk had in last week's debate here in Washington over government spending. What do you make of Musk's role in Trump's party?
Well, listen, he's got a very powerful role. He's got a $44 billion megaphone. He's got over 200 plus million followers. And well, if he was instrumental in that election, the stuff that Elon Musk did in Pennsylvania alone, I think helped the president win that election. So he has a very big voice. I think the problem for Elon Musk, though, he's got a little bit of Potomac fever. And so you think you're going to go to Washington and change Washington. That's Potomac fever. And the weird thing about Potomac fever is one of the symptoms is you don't know you have Potomac fever. And of course, I have had Potomac fever, Wolf. So I'm speaking as a former patient that's been afflicted with the disease. So he's just got to be very, very careful because he's making enemies that he doesn't realize. And the incentives in Washington are totally different than those in business. And so everybody's incentivized in a different and sometimes irrational way. And I think the power that he's wielding right now, Washington has a great immunological system, and I think they'll find a way to rebut him. So I would say to Elon Musk, not he would listen to me, but stick to business. You've done great. You've made a couple $100 billion since the election. Lay off the gas on politics a little bit because.
Did he just say a couple of $100 billion? A couple of $100 billion since the election? Well, this is the thing. Like, I don't think he should lay off of elections or politics or whatever. He should actually put his foot on the gas. However, he should not run for any political seat. If he wants to stay that Batman status, Mr. Wayne status, the vigilante status, he needs to not run for any political position. He's been assigned as the Department of Government Efficiency, part of the committee member, as well as Vivek Ramaswamy. However, he does not have any political sit as of now. He should keep it that way. And the people will crown him. They've already crowned him, a winner for the Republican Party. And that's something that it's more valuable for the people to love you, to think you are for them. Well, he is for the people, but for the people to think that he's way up here rather than actually running for office. And then once you run for office, you go through background check to see if you've smoked one marijuana in your entire life, it's gonna come out. So it's like, yeah, he shouldn't even try to do all that. It should stay on X. He has X. X is already like the judge and the jury. Okay, he needs to stay on X, continue what he's doing with the Department of Government Efficiency and with the 47th president-elect, and just stay right there. Is he pretty famous? He is absolutely famous. Okay, but what he's doing right now, he should just keep doing it.
These people could hurt you, and it's no need for you to get hurt. You're doing so well in your life.
Yeah, he certainly is. Anthony, President-elect Trump is talking about buying Greenland once again, like he did in his first term, writing on Truth Social, and I'm quoting him now, "The United States of America feels that the ownership and control of Greenland is an absolute necessity." Now he's also talking about taking control of the Panama Canal. Is this a realistic policy he's advocating? What do you think?
Well, I mean, you left out Canada. I mean, obviously, we've got Governor Trudeau in Canada, and he's talking about a mini invasion of Mexico, I guess. I don't know. I mean, this is the stuff that he says, and then his cultists get out there and say he's either serious or not serious, depending on what he's saying. And so I don't like it because it just makes us look bad. And what ends up happening is you force
Softy.
allies
He's definitely a
to
Swiftie.
form unnatural alliances against the United States. And so if you want to put a military base in Greenland, I'm sure there could be a negotiation related to that, just like we have military bases all over the world in other sovereign countries. But to put that out on Truth Social, I don't understand what his advisors are even saying to him.
That is a show of strength. I already explained it before. In my opinion, it's like he's sending a message to leaders like Kim Jong Un, sending a message to leaders like Xi Jinping, sending a message to these leaders that you think you can just invade other countries. Actually, I am the biggest whale in the ocean. So you guys need to chill. And I may be making Canada my 51st state while I'm at it. Okay. While we are at it, we could make Canada the 51st state and Justin Trudeau the 51st governor. This is how, look, politics is a dirty game. You have to assert your power. You have to show that you're a powerful figure to reckon with. If you do not, if you're like humble, sleeping, and falling upstairs like Joe Biden, this is what you get. Ukraine and Russia, Palestinian people and goddamn Iranian people with Israel. So if you're sleeping on world stages and tripping off airplane stairs, this is what you get.
About the common sense related to that, because it's just really lacking. So you tell me, Wolf, are we going to invade Canada, Mexico? Are we going to take Greenland and the Panama Canal? I don't know. I mean, if we're doing that, it's going to be a rough 4 years.
Yeah, I suspect that's not going to happen, but we shall see. Let me get your thoughts before I let you go, Anthony, on the House Ethics Committee report released today on former Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz, finding that he paid women for sex, including a 17-year-old girl. How did the Trump team not know about these allegations before he was announced to be the president-elect's pick for Attorney General of the United States?
Well, I think if you do research on that, I think what you'll find is that was an impetuous move by President Trump that caught a lot of his staffers off guard. And I think when they regrouped and they explained to the president that they probably knew about this information and that this information would derail him, they let it happen and they just let that derailing take place. A couple of senators got to Matt Gaetz behind closed doors and said, look, this is not happening. Don't embarrass yourself. Don't embarrass the president and drop out of the race. But I think this is one of the problems. They were set up probably to pick Pam Bondi. Trump in an impetuous move, President Trump in an impetuous move, moved to pick Matt Gaetz. And I don't know who moved him. Sometimes it's the last person in the room that can do that to him. But I think he caught his aides off guard. And I don't think it's true that his aides didn't know about the situation. I think they did. And that's the reason why Matt Gaetz left the Congress and had no chance to be Attorney General. And I'm not surprised that this report came out because that's what happens in Washington. This stuff never stays sealed.
Yeah, good point. Gaetz has suggested he would run for the Senate in Florida, his home state, or maybe even that Trump would bring him into the administration in a position that doesn't require Senate approval. Do you see Gaetz working in the Trump White House in some position?
I mean, listen, anything can happen. I mean, maybe he'll make him the next comms director after Stephen. I mean, I don't know. I mean, President Trump, anything can happen. He could bring him in just to upset people. I hope it doesn't happen because I think Matt Gaetz, if you read that report, what he did is absolutely reprehensible.
I like the fact that every single politician in the United States knows that we cannot dictate to Trump what he should do. He is very eccentric. You could never tell what he's going to do next. And this is why I love him as a commander-in-chief. This is what a leader does. You shouldn't know a leader's next move. You shouldn't know your leader's next move. You should know, okay, he's told us the goal, is aligned what he wants us to achieve. However, he should be flexible in achieving those goals. And that's why the people voted for him and made him the 47th president of the United States. And it is what it is, okay? People saying, well, him going to Panama Canal and saying he wants to take it over is bullying. No, the United States actually built Panama Canal, okay? And thousands of United States men actually passed away while they were building the Panama Canal because of malaria and yellow fever and a lot of stuff. Okay, so it's not like, oh, it's bullying. No, it's just taking back what the United States built. Okay, because it was the French that started building it in the 1800s, but they couldn't finish it because they didn't have investors and they didn't have enough manpower. Actually, they were losing men, and it's like, we're not gonna do this, okay? And the United States took the project over in the 1900s and then finished it up in the early 1900s. I think it was finished around 1914. Okay, the United States finished building the Panama Canal around 1914, if I'm not wrong. So it's like, no, that's not bullying. That's just, we taking this back. Okay, if you ain't gonna play ball with us, then you gonna know.
And he shouldn't be in our government. It's just a lack of respect. It's disrespectful to the American people to put Matt Gaetz in a role like that. But you and I both know that anything can happen with Donald Trump. He could make a decision to do that, and there'll be very few people that will be willing to stop him. But I hope it doesn't happen. I think Kevin McCarthy finally has his due here, Wolf. He explained to people over the last 18 to 24 months what was going on with Matt Gaetz. And I think there's somebody here right before the eve of Christmas that feels vindicated, and that's Kevin McCarthy.
Yeah, good point.
One thing is for sure. So Panama president says, "Well, you're not going to bully me, Trump." and the OG ain't got time. He said, "Well, we will see about that." Check this out. He ain't playing around. This is the commander-in-chief.
All right, Anita, let's bring in Alex Gray for more on this. You actually wrote an op-ed about this not too long ago saying that it makes perfect sense. Now, they say Greenland's not for sale, but sometimes things aren't for sale until they are for sale. And when you look at Trump, I mean, this is a guy who bought Mar-a-Lago for $7 million. He knows how to cut a deal.
And look, President Trump is he's in the best traditions of Abraham Lincoln, who was talking about purchasing Greenland in the 1860s, the best tradition of Ronald Reagan, who warned 50 years ago that giving up the Panama Canal was foolishness, was dangerous to our national security. President Trump is 100% right. Greenland has strategic value to the United States, both minerals and strategic for our national security and our defense. And giving up the Panama Canal in the 1970s was one of the most foolhardy strategic decisions in the history of this country. President Reagan was right that it was a mistake. President Trump is right that it was a mistake. And President Trump's probably the first leader since Ronald Reagan who has the courage to do something about it, and I hope he does.
How do you convince Denmark, which has ownership over Greenland, to sell? Apparently, according to some reports back in 2019, Trump was offering to trade Puerto Rico for it. Give the Danes a little nice tropical island. I don't think anybody would actually go for that.
Well, there are a lot of things you can do to create an environment where we can take over the defense of Greenland. We can take over a significant part of the national security obligations that Denmark currently has for Greenland. The Greenlanders have said publicly they're going to get independence at some point. So the question is, when they get independence, are the Chinese and the Russians going to be there to greet them and to do things that certainly are not in the sovereign interests of the Greenlandic people? Or is it going to be the United States who's there to make sure that both our security and the sovereignty of the Greenlanders themselves are protected? And I would much rather have Donald Trump waiting for the Greenlanders when they get independence than Xi Jinping.
I mean, it really is a gorgeous place, albeit cold. I also wanted to ask you about Trump and the Panama Canal, because he seems to be in a little bit of an online feud with the president, Jose Raul Molino. Jose Raul Molino said of Trump saying that he would take back ownership of the canal, said, quote, "As president, I want to express precisely that every square meter of the Panama Canal and its adjacent area belong to Panama and will continue to be. The sovereignty and independence of our country are non-negotiable," to which, as Jackie pointed out, Trump posted a picture of the bow of a ship transiting the canal with an American flag on it saying, "Welcome to the United States Canal." I mean, obviously, this is just leverage to try to lower fees. Is there any way Trump could take it back?
Well, I think we should have a serious discussion about the failure of the United States under the Carter administration to give up one of our most significant strategic points in the world. It was one of the greatest American engineering and strategic achievements of the 20th century. Let's have a conversation about what has happened in the last 10, 15 years where China is now dominating the Panama Canal and threatening our interests in the Western Hemisphere. I think President Trump is in a great position to talk seriously about what it would look like for the United States to enter into some sort of negotiation with Panama to have a future stake, a more comprehensive American stake in something we built with American blood, sweat, and tears under Teddy Roosevelt.
Yeah, and then there's the trolling of Justin Trudeau, which this president continues to do mercilessly. Here's what he said on Wednesday on Truth Social. No one can answer why we subsidize Canada to the tune of over $100 million a year. Makes no sense. Many Canadians want Canada to become the 51st state. They would save massively on taxes and military protection. I think it's a great idea. 51st state. Now, I say this as a person who was born in Canada and emigrated to the United States back in 1989, became a U.S. citizen a week after 9/11. For Canadians, it would save them 30% going to Disney World if they were using American dollars instead of Canadian dollars.
Well, in addition to that, John, it'd be nice if the Canadians would spend more than 1.3% of their GDP on defense and actually start contributing to protecting North America. So, in addition to Disney World, it'd be great if we could get some help from them defending our shared border and defending the Arctic.
Well, I don't think Trudeau's going to be there much longer. I think that Trump's going to be dealing with a fellow named Pierre Poilievre, who he may find more on his side in terms of a lot of these thorny issues between the two nations. Alex, great to see you. Wish you a Merry Christmas.
Thanks, John. Same to you.
To White House correspondent Jackie Heinrich with this ambitious and expected agenda. Hi, Jackie.
Hey, Martha. President-elect Trump, campaigned on bringing down prices and securing the border. And he has a number of executive orders planned to that end for his first day in office.
We will begin the largest deportation operation in American history, larger even than that of President Dwight D. Eisenhower. The DEA, the FBI, the intelligence community, and financial sanctions to remove the migrant gangs and criminals that are killing and raping and maiming our citizens. We're going to get them out.
Trump is also planning executive orders to reduce energy prices through permitting reforms, and he wants to extend the 2017 tax cuts, some of which are expiring next year. Last week, Democrats foiled efforts to fast-track that plan. Congress will have to battle it out in next year's budget reconciliation package instead. But this weekend, Trump outlined a new area that he wants to save America money: fees to use the Panama Canal, which the U.S. built in the 1900s and then transferred to Panamanian control under President Jimmy Carter. Trump ordered Panama to, quote, treat us fairly or the U.S. would take it back, to which Panama's president replied, every square meter of the Panama Canal and its adjacent area belongs to Panama and will continue to be. The sovereignty and independence of our country is not negotiable. Trump responded, we will see about that, plus an image of an American flag planted in the canal.
I think we should have a serious discussion about the failure of the United States under the Carter administration to give up one of our most significant strategic points in the world. It was one of the greatest American engineering and strategic achievements of the 20th century. China is now dominating the Panama Canal and threatening our interests in the Western Hemisphere.
Trump also re-upped interest in buying Greenland from Denmark, to which Denmark said Greenland is not for sale. Martha.
Jackie, thank you.
I was amazed when the president's speaking a lot when he was on the campaign trail. What do you do? And it drives people crazy, but they just say, new audience, I got to give the same message every single time. And sometimes you carry the message and you go, wow, it's the same speech. Since the president won, he's putting new things into all his remarks, whether it's the Patriot Awards or what we saw yesterday in front of Charlie Kirk's crew.
Yeah. I think part of it is like when you're running for office, you want to be very consistent and tell people this is what I'm going to do. Now he's won. It's not like he's making some giant crazy turn here. He's just trying to maybe put some meat on the bones of what the agenda is going to be now that he's got the power soon of governance.
Let's watch a little bit from what he said yesterday. Watch this.
So we get the highest vote ever for a Republican candidate. We won by 36 points with young people. That never happens. A Republican loses by 36 or 40. So I'm going to have to start thinking about TikTok. We did go on TikTok, and we had a great response. We had billions of views, billions and billions of views. They brought me a chart, and it was a record, and it was so beautiful to see. And as I looked at it, I said, maybe we got to keep this sucker around a little while, you know. On my first day back in the Oval Office, I will sign a historic slate of executive orders to close our border to illegal aliens and stop the invasion of our country.
Illegal alien.
And on that same day, we will begin the largest deportation operation in American history, and we will create the new Department of Government Efficiency headed by Elon Musk. And no, he's not taking the presidency. I like having smart people. You know, they're on a new kick. Russia, 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 Ukraine, 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 all the different hoaxes. And the new one is, President Trump has ceded the presidency to Elon Musk. No, no, that's not happening. But Elon's done an amazing job. Isn't it nice to have smart people that we can rely on? But no, he's not going to be president, that I can tell you. And I'm safe. You know why? He can't be. He wasn't born in this country. Has anyone ever heard of the Panama Canal? Huh? Because we're being ripped off at the Panama Canal like we're being ripped off everywhere else. When President Jimmy Carter foolishly gave it away for $1. During his term in office, it was solely for Panama to manage and not for China or any other country to manage. It was given to Panama and to the people of Panama, but it has provisions. You got to treat us fairly, and they haven't treated us fairly. If the principles, both moral and legal, of this magnanimous gesture of giving are not followed, then we will demand that the Panama Canal be returned to the United States of America in full, quickly, and without question.
So those are some of the things I was talking about. So he's talking about an Iron Dome for the country. I want Greenland from Denmark. And by the way, I want the Panama Canal. So I asked the Brain Room about the Panama Canal. They say there's no proof that China owns any portion of it. We use 72% of all traffic is American. And the prices did go up 15%, nearly $5 billion over the last year. But they say it's because of low water levels, and they have to slow down the amount of traffic that goes through. But you know what? Rattle their cage, make them justify it, and let's see if we can get those prices down. After all, we are a frequent customer.
I do think part of this, though, is national security. You think of Greenland, for example. The Arctic is a major, I think, battle area for the future in terms of who controls the Arctic. And I think the same applies to the Panama Canal. China may not control it, but they, my understanding is, have some very strategic interests in that area. So part of this, I think, is Trump starting a negotiation with, we want the whole thing back. And then the Panamanians might say, well, hang on, no, but let's have this conversation. Trump just announced yesterday his ambassador to Denmark, which owns Greenland. Can you imagine having that job now, or being the ambassador to Panama? You're going to have a busy opening few weeks here.
I think it's one of the PayPal mafia. It's Ken Howry, ambassador to Denmark. So I think he's probably like, good, I want something
I'm sure
to do.
he put that person there with this exact thing in mind, because he posted on Truth Social, for purposes of national security and freedom through the world, the United States of America feels that the ownership and control of Greenland is an absolute necessity. This is something that he brought up during his first term in office in Denmark, which, I mean, Greenland is a sovereign nation, but under the Kingdom of Denmark's authority, I guess.
Sovereignty, they're within that kingdom.
It's an autonomous nation.
Yes.
Anyway, Donald Trump was mocked for saying it, but he clearly has a plan for why he wants to control Greenland or take it under the United States' umbrella. And one of the things I'm just pure speculation here, is he is talking a lot about how to get criminal illegal immigrants out of our country. And if countries like Venezuela that we don't have relations with won't take them back, maybe he'll build a facility in Greenland and ship them there. That would for sure be a deterrent for people to come to the country if they know that they're going to Greenland.
Very cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, put it this way. I think my prediction, we get it.
Like, get it?
I think we get Greenland. My prediction,
It's huge.
What's say to December 23rd?
Yeah.
December 23rd, 2024, I believe by the end of his term, we'll get Greenland.
Okay, so
because he loves real estate.
Yeah. Mark it down.
Right, and we'll see. And I'll tell you what, I'm wondering what Denmark needs from us. What are they?
Or I wonder what Greenland has to say about this. I don't know how they would feel about
They
it.
do have a government.
A couple fun facts about Greenland. Do you know the population of it?
They do have a government.
56,699 people. And that's because
course they do.
75% of it is covered
So it makes it
in a
interesting.
sheet of ice. And the capital city is Nuuk.
Really?
Yeah.
I would never have picked Nuuk.
N-U-U-K, right?
That's right.
Right. So Iceland's nicer than Greenland. And the Vikings are responsible. Is that
Iceland
correct?
is greener than Greenland.
Which is
And
weird.
Greenland is icier than Iceland.
The way I learned it, and a lot of times things don't come out correct.
Whoa,
but I
that's
remember
why.
people told me that the Vikings looking to throw off visitors would name Iceland so no one would come. It's nice, and they named Greenland.
I think
Greenland.
that's probably true.
Like
Can
a
you
psychological
find out, can we ask
thing.
Fran Tarkington of the Vikings or somebody?
Get the brain
Or
room.
Alan
Brain
Page?
room.
Where's Leif Erikson when you need him?
I know. Or at least, yeah.
I know.
I would say.
I
but-
bet you there's truth to that. I remember learning that in school.
Right? Those are the types of things that you expect on a news network. I bet you there's some truth to that. Carly definitely tried to back me.
My speculation on why Trump wants Greenland could be totally off.
Right.
No,
By the way.
as soon as you start saying, like, this might not come out right, but I'm just like holding on to the couch. What's going to happen?
I should save that for radio.
President-elect Trump also threatening to reassert U.S. control over the Panama Canal. President-elect
Let's just
saying
sip that
he
for
will
radio.
not allow the canal to fall into the wrong hands, warning of Chinese influence there as well. Senior White House correspondent Jackie Heinrich reports tonight from New York. Good evening, Jackie.
Good evening, Brett. Trump's foreign policy agenda is beginning to take shape, with the Panama Canal and Greenland topping the list of American interests. Speaking to a crowd yesterday at Turning Point USA, Trump demanded that Panama lower fees that American ships are charged for passage or face the canal's seizure. Trump didn't say how he would force its return to U.S. control, but claimed that America is being ripped off after constructing it in the early 1900s.
You got to treat us fairly, and they haven't treated us fairly. If the principles, both moral and legal, of this magnanimous gesture of giving are not followed, then we will demand that the Panama Canal be returned to the United States of America in full, quickly, and without question.
That drew a rebuke from Panama's president, who wrote, "Every square meter of the Panama Canal and its adjacent area belong to Panama and will continue to be. The sovereignty and independence of our country is not negotiable." Now, Trump replied, "We'll see about that," posting an image of an American flag planted there in the canal. Now,
Yo, this man is savage, yo. This man is straight up savage. The government in Panama says it is for us. We're going to take full control of it. And Trump says, we will see about it. And he puts a United States flag in the canal. That's just wild.
Trump is also eyeing Greenland again, which he first expressed interest in purchasing in 2019. In a post naming his ambassador to Greenland, Trump said, "For purposes of national security and freedom throughout the world, the United States of America feels that the ownership and control of Greenland is an absolute necessity." Greenland's prime minister gave a frosty statement that the country is not for sale. Now, so far, no response from leading Democrats. The party's left with no heir apparent when Biden leaves office later on in January. Wall Street Journal reports the party has yet to land on a clear message or a clear leading messenger, leaving the president-elect mostly unchallenged, even as Republicans expose their own vulnerabilities and divisions when Trump nearly derailed a stopgap funding deal with last-minute demands. Biden has largely stayed out of public view in recent weeks as Trump continues to hold meetings with business executives and world leaders. He announced yesterday that Russian President Vladimir Putin is seeking a meeting with him as soon as possible. Brett.
Jackie, thanks.
Shout out to the OG, man. Shout out to the OG. Everybody wants to meet with Trump. Every single person wants to meet with Trump because nobody wants smoke. Nobody wants to smoke. Nobody wants to smoke because you cannot handle the smoke. You can talk your talk, but you cannot handle the smoke. And that's it. And that's it. Okay, that's it.
Focus our efforts on
it was not given for the benefit of others, but merely as a token of cooperation with us in Panama. If the principles, both moral and legal, of this magnanimous gesture of giving are not followed, then we will demand the Panama Canal be returned to us in full and without question. To the officials of Panama, please be guided.
Okay, so what's going on with AOC? What's going on with AOC? He's talking. AOC is spiraling. It's definitely spiraling. But let's hear what she has to say.
In full meltdown mode over Elon Musk. After the Doge co-chair blasted the frivolous spending Democrats tried to jam through before the holidays, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez began to spiral over Musk's influence on President-elect Trump's policy.
Oh, I don't think we're witnessing the start of an oligarchy. I think we are fully here. You literally have a completely unelected billionaire who has just taken over. You have billionaires who run news outlets like Jeff Bezos and the Washington Post, billionaires that run the LA Times, completely interjecting into their editorial boards and manipulating what's being written in them. We're here. We are here.
But Donald Trump brushed off Democrats' panic and said it's just another form of left-wing hysteria.
And no, he's not taking the presidency. I like having smart people. You know, they're on a new kick. Russia, 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 Ukraine, 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 all the different hoaxes. And the new one is President Trump has ceded the presidency to Elon Musk. No, no, that's not happening. But Elon's done an amazing job. Isn't it nice to have smart people that we can rely on?
I think President Trump handled this brilliantly and beautifully by saying, let's have smart people. I think the swamp fears not one innovative, brilliant billionaire businessman, but two working together to actually peel the secret door off and show us all the money that they're spending on stuff and crap we don't need and didn't quite ask for. The other thing I want to focus on AOC here for a moment, Brian, because I think this is a publicity stunt for her. Here's somebody who got walloped by septuagenarian Jerry Connolly just last week when she tried to be a ranking member for the committee. Even Nancy Pelosi voted against her. I think her influence has been waning for a while. This country just rejected her form of socialism. And speaking of billionaires, at least one billionaire, Tom Steyer, has donated to her campaign. Another billionaire, George Soros, secretly funded a trip that she and some other left-wing members of Congress took to go meet with left-wing Latin American leaders. So she's got her own set of billionaires she likes. She just doesn't like Trump's billionaires. Right. Elon Musk is an innovator. He's a job creator. He's brilliant. He's going to get this done. He's doing it as a volunteer.
Facts.
But I can't help but think
Straight
that
up
she
facts.
knows Jamal Bowman, Cori Bush, all these people she supported and endorsed lost in the primaries because they're seen as too left-wing. I feel like it's a play for relevance.
Right. I think she ran for that to be the ranking member, to be more mainstream. And Nancy Pelosi, even with one hip, says, whatever you do, I'm suffering here in, I think, Denmark, she fell. We'll find out. Well, if she could whisper something about Greenland. But she says, make sure she doesn't win. She got 84 votes, wasn't nearly enough. But I will say this. To say Elon Musk is like a billionaire or Donald Trump's a billionaire, you just diminish why he's there. He's not there because he's rich. He's there next to the president because he's innovative, he's resourceful, he understands manufacturing. He's not just somebody with great ideas. He implements those ideas, and that's why the president keeps him close. And that's why as much as I like Governor Chris Christie, I think he's wrong. On Sunday, he said, well, Trump gets sick of you. He keeps you close for 3 months, and then he gets sick of hearing from you, and he gets rid of you like Reince Priebus and others. That's true with people who are maybe aides. This guy is someone who's going to be talking to him about different ways to move our country forward in a way that maybe only he knows how because of what he did and what he accomplished between chips and brains, between Starlink, between SpaceX, between Tesla, and now he's got this other company that drills tunnels underneath the ground to get you places quickly. That's a guy I want next to me.
Lisa, this is what they did during our first term, trying to divide the president from his team by putting all these ridiculous stories out there. Who's trying to be the president? Who's leaking? Who's doing this, that, and the other against the president? Well, all the while, he likes to surround himself with people who will push back a little bit, respectfully and deferentially. When he says what's going on, he wants to know what's going on. The Oval Office is the biggest hermetically sealed bubble in the world. So Elon Musk is just one of these, the best advisor probably, but one of many advisors. The Bible says wisdom in a multitude of counselors. How do you read all this?
Well, and that's what a good CEO does, right? That's what a good president does. Surround yourself by really smart people. He's surrounding himself with people, problem solvers, doers, titans of business, governors, people who've had to lead for a living. That's what he's doing. I think the reason why they're attacking Elon Musk so much is they're trying to drive a wedge between Elon Musk and the president, right? They're trying to drive apart this, team Avengers that Donald Trump has surrounded himself, trying to drive a wedge there. But if you're Elon Musk, I think he's doing this truly for the right reasons. I mean, I listened to that whole 2-hour interview that he did with President Trump on X, and he repeatedly talked about the fact that civilization's on the line. Freedom is online. Because what does he get from catapulting and destroying the CR, right? He doesn't get anything. But what does he get from being on Doge? He doesn't get anything from it. What did he get from the Twitter acquisition, right? He lost $24 billion on it as of September 2024. So, he's doing this for the right reasons. His heart is in for the right reasons. But, they're just trying to drive a wedge between Musk and Trump.
I believe Elon Musk and Donald Trump are going to have a long and productive relationship. As Vivek and Elon get in there and start to uncover and show us all things we can't ignore with our own 2 eyes, do you think you can get Democrats on board to try to get a little bit more efficiency in government, start slashing this waste?
I hope so. I'd be one Democrat, but I would remind you that one time that in the last several days that Mr. Musk, who I hold in high regard, he's a graduate of my school as well, the one time he told Congress to do something, they didn't do it. So it was Republicans that didn't do what he wanted to do. I think what Democrats have to understand is you got to be strategic when you are being critical of these kinds of things instead of cathartic. I think you have to understand both Trump and Musk, and for that matter, Vivek Ramaswamy, are disruptors. They're unconventional. The country elected President Trump or elected him again because they wanted an unconventional thinker to deal with traditional, conventional things in their lives. And you gotta stand back and not allow them to run over things, but understand that they're going to approach this a little differently. I think for President Trump, what he has to understand with Elon Musk and perhaps Elon as well, the closeness that they enjoy and the wealth that they have accumulated, the three of them, and to put anybody in the same conversation with wealth and with Elon is an insult to Elon, but the wealth that they have accumulated is so out of the realm for everyday Americans. You can't even access the wealth that in your own mind what Elon has, and for that matter, Vivek, and what Donald Trump does as well. But the president has to understand their closeness means when they start making recommendations about what government should be doing or the people they should be firing or organizations that should be combined, when those guys speak on social media, there is a sense that they might be speaking for the president. And the president made clear that they're not, but there is a sense when Elon Musk says any Republican that votes for this, I don't know the exact words, but he said it's the wrong thing to do, and he made it sound like there might be consequences. You can understand how some may interpret that to mean that President Trump is speaking. I was glad to hear the president say that was not the case, but going forward, I think they got to be mindful of that.
Look, I wouldn't mind wrapping my head around that kind of wealth.
This is very simple. It's about schemers. That's all it is. The people who are afraid and yelling out is because Elon and Doge are going to be able to show us how public officials on $135,000 salaries became millionaires overnight. That's what they're afraid of. That's why they don't like Elon, because you can't bribe him. You can't blackmail him. He'll say weirder things about himself than you ever could. And the President Trump, I know this from person, he can't stand yes men, and he doesn't like schemers. He doesn't need to fight for re-election. He's playing with house money, and he's going to surround himself with people there who are going to expose. So schemers, and as voters, we should pay attention to everyone who has a problem with what they're trying to do with cleaning up the government.
Here, the swamp strikes back, but they've met their match.
Hey, Sean Hannity.
Of course, they've met their match. This is men with billions of dollars. Nobody's playing around right here. This is billions, okay? In the billions, guys. Of course, you're gonna have stuff to say, but nobody cares.
Rich
Nobody cares
Lowry,
about what you're saying.
editor-in-chief of National Review, and David Webb, Fox News contributor and host of the David Webb Show on Sirius XM, where I've been happy to be a guest from time to time. David, great to see you. Rich,
Thanks,
great
David.
to see you as well. So, David, we just had a 4-year test drive of progressive Democrat policies. I mean, of course, we elected Biden, who claimed to be a centrist for all of his life, but the policies were clearly unlike the economy, the border, public safety, foreign policy issues. It was a disaster. The test drive crashed big time, both with the economy and even, I mean, you think of the peaceful time during the Trump administration. That wasn't coincidental. That had a lot to do with his leadership, Donald Trump's leadership, and the wars that ensued during the Biden administration. So where do Democrats go from here?
Where do they go from here? Probably not far from where they are right now.
Really? They stick to what doesn't work?
They stick to what doesn't work. If you look at the split in the Democrat Party, the elitists are now too old to stay in charge much longer. The Nancy Pelosi's, Joe Manchin, who faked being a centrist, has left. What are they left with? Is AOC, Hakeem Jeffries, the squad members, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, who really are the center, the heart of their party? Are they going to change? No. Bernie Sanders is walked off the stage. He did his job. He got his nose under the tent. And now, as he said, his policies, his thoughts are now mainstream in the Democrat Party. Hillary Clinton recognized that a large part of her base when she ran against Trump were socialists. So the Democrats are stuck there for some time, but that also means a significant resistance that they're going to continue, not just against Trump, but really against the country. Their complaints about billionaires, they have their own billionaire, Alexander Soros, Steyer, so many others. So
there were more billionaires supporting Kamala Harris than there were supporting Trump.
I had a list of 88 prime Wall Street players that were supporting Harris.
Right.
So they're not going anywhere. And part of the money grift is acquire the power and hope to build the next base.
All right. Well, you said that it was all the old school, and you're right, Dave. We had Joe Manchin. We were going to run the soundbite, but we won't. I do want to run the soundbite, though, of a younger Democrat who's thinking of actually moving to the Republican side if Democrats don't get off this progressive line. Run that Stephen Smith soundbite if you have it there.
I voted Democrat, and I got to tell you something right now. I don't like the fact that I did. Nobody's above the law. But then you go out and you pardon your son. And I'm no longer interested in, nor do I believe any of us should be interested in listening to a bunch of fear-mongering to tell us who we shouldn't vote for. Why don't you come up with a plan that tells us why we should vote for you? And if Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, or the host of other Republican candidates coming down the pike, that's the kind of message that they're going to put forth, I'm down for it. I'm open-minded.
And, Rich, then you have a rookie like John Fetterman, who just said, I'm not rooting against Donald Trump. So it's not just the old-timers that want to change from progressive policies.
So I agree with David. The party's not going to change. It's going to need to lose another national election or two. But if you want to point to someone who gets it, I think it is John Fetterman. One, speak with a clear and authentic voice. Be a little funny and brash. And don't just distance yourself from the left, denounce them when they're ridiculous, wrong, or immoral, which he's done over the last year. So I think that's a workable model for the party.
His change, though, isn't
What's
it?
that?
John Fetterman's change from the way he was before the stroke. It's like the stroke really shook him up.
Besides Donald Trump, he has to be high on your list of the politicians who've had the best year this past year.
But couldn't
most of the party's not going to go there.
He sort of lead the party, be the front of the spear of changing their policy from the AOC side?
I think he's going to be a loner. He's been a loner this last year. He'll continue to be a loner because the forces that make the Democratic Party beholden to the left are just too strong.
All right, David, I want to switch to the public safety side of the national debate, which I think Democrats are losing big time because we see with our eyes what is happening. And, of course, the most recent example this weekend, that barbaric attack of that woman in the subway. She was burned to death by a guy who was sitting there watching her burn. And then by the way, he was a Guatemalan illegal alien. He'd been kicked out during the Trump administration, came back probably during Biden. We don't know that as a fact. And he's been accused. He hasn't been convicted yet. But the amazing thing is the reaction of Governor Hochul, who, after the actual attack, said, and I'm putting up from her ex-post, a suspect is now in custody for the horrific incident on the F train. Our brand new security cameras helped law enforcement to get the suspect. I mean, she has no bragging rights for not preventing what happened here. I mean, it's all about prevention. We have to prevent attacks on innocent people, not just react to after it's happened.
Kathy Hochul is more tone deaf on illegal immigration than Governor Cuomo was during COVID. Think about that. Kathy Hochul is another Working Families Party candidate, much like Letitia James, who was their biggest first success on the state level.
Working Families, for those who don't know, is kind of a far left outfit.
Call them what they
New
are
York.
by their policies. They're the Communist Party in New York,
right.
And they're operating in about 24 states right now. I've been tracking them for a long time. And when you look at what Kathy Hochul did, she's trying to take credit for something that she caused. The deal with the MTA, the state who governs it, and the city falls under the governor. She's responsible. Her office is responsible.
But Rich, having said that, you gotta give
First
some.
of all, hats off to David. He's such a pro. He lost a piece of equipment. Did he bat an eyelash?
Not an eyelash, David. That was magnificent. I must say, I've been in the business a long time. You did quite well with it.
I was
All right.
startled, but
all right. But back to the issue. It's not just Governor Hochul. The DA Alvin Bragg was so busy on this lame-brained prosecution of Donald Trump on going after Daniel Penny. Talk about the subway crime. Here's a guy who steps up, a Marine, former Marine who steps up to the plate, does the right thing, and all DA Bragg can do is try to prosecute the guy. Thank God the jury was not of like mind with there.
Yeah,
But
if Daniel Penny just...
the DA's got to take some blame for this.
Absolutely. If Daniel Penny had just punched someone in the head randomly in a subway and left, he would have been fine, right? But it's because of his race and because he stepped in and did the right thing. And I don't care what the statistics say. If one person is burned alive on the subway, that has an effect on everyone because you're thinking about it when you ride the subway, and you shouldn't have to do that.
Well, the statistics, by the way, are cooked, the ones that we get from the administration.
Right, but that's what they want to use to reassure people. But this is obviously much more stark and real for people. And also, the way you prevent these things from happening, don't have illegal immigrants on the streets. Don't let low-level offenders go. Don't let minor disorder go. Lock it down in that sense, and then it's less likely that something like this happens. That was the Rudy Giuliani approach, which has been trashed over the last decade.
And then we wake up this morning and find out that these commutations by the Biden administration wasn't obviously Biden is not competent enough to do these things, but somebody in his administration is trying to. 37 of the commutations involved violent criminals who were just the worst of the worst. What is that about, David?
Well, it's about an agenda within the Biden administration. He's not in charge of this. The pardon process always has a lot of players in it for any president, the review by the Justice Department. But this is an agenda that they need to drive forward. It's not just about the contradictions between 1993 Joe Biden, the crime bill, and where he is today. This is an agenda. And if you look at the people he's either commuting or pardoning, the first 39, the 1,499 commutations, look for who's in there and ask yourself, would anyone who's competent sit there, no matter what they have a belief in, if they had input from a proper Justice Department, would you commute or pardon someone who, for instance, kidnapped and murdered a 12-year-old? Would you have someone who targeted someone, a first responder, and planned the murder of a service member? This is something that has gone much deeper and wider, and it's why when Biden wasn't able to run the White House as president of the United States, the committee within have been running this. Therefore, their agenda, much to the earlier point about
the thing that really politically I don't understand. We found out that pandering to particular groups don't work. You're saying he's trying to apologize for supporting that anti-crime bill that many people in the black community, Latino community objected to. But pandering doesn't work. That's why the open border actually drove Latinos into the Republican arms. They were there waiting for it. Pandering doesn't work. Thank God Americans have woken up.
But it's beyond pandering when you have an ideological bent. They don't care about blacks. They don't care about Latinos. They don't care about the poor. Brandon Johnson in Chicago is a socialist. He doesn't care about the constituents. He wants to make sure he follows the very Alinskyite rule, which is how you remake America. You have a balkanization of the country by people from all over the world. That's one part part of it. You don't care where the criminals come in with economic migrants or otherwise, because it allows you to change and rebuild America. That's what their goal is. It's not even about
Saul
pandering
Alinsky, by the
anymore.
way, who actually dedicated his last book, Rules for Radicals, to Satan. I mean, that's where a lot of these people are going. Okay, finally, I gotta give this to you, Rich, because back in the late 1970s, there was a debate between William F. Buckley, who founded the National Review, and Ronald Reagan over the Panama Canal Treaty. Reagan was against it. He thought that eventually Panama would break all the rules, and it's a contract, a treaty, and in fact, that's exactly what happened. Was Buckley wrong on that?
Well,
because
in this
Donald
sense,
Trump thinks he was.
In this sense, Trump is highly Reaganite, right? And look, if we get the Panama Canal, Greenland, and Canada as a 51st state, it's the most successful foreign policy since James K. Polk, right? But I don't think we're taking back the Panama Canal. We might get lower fees, though. This is how Trump works people. He did it with foreign actors all during his first term. Remember, he cut off aid to Central American countries, like, oh, they're all going to collapse. It's going to be terrible. He cut it off for one day because they went along with his immigration plans, and that's what he wanted. So this is a way for him to work others and get the negotiations he wants.
David, you know a little bit about Panama. I mean, the fact is that the president is saying, no, it's ours. It will be forever. But I love that American flag that Donald Trump put on his posting.
Yeah.
Can we show that again in the canal? He has an American flag, and what does it basically say? Like it or not, here it is. This is American property.
He is a real estate guy, and I looked and I can't find where France paid us back the $40 million when they failed to do the canal. So maybe put a lien on the canal. I agree with Rich's point. This is a negotiation starter, but there's another issue down there, the Darien Gap. And if you want to negotiate with Molino, and you want to negotiate in Panama, you need some leverage, and you use all available tools.
But the biggest issue that goes unstated is China.
Yes.
China has been bribing the hell out of Panamanian officials for years.
Well, they'll think twice about that now, too.
Yeah, exactly. We do not want China to get hold of our Panama Canal, the canal that we...
Facts. Absolutely facts. Nobody wants China to take over the Panama Canal. It is just devastating for America. Okay? It is what it is. Shout out to RFK. What is going on with RFK Jr.?
Make America healthy again. Lawmakers are now targeting SNAP. They say that the USDA should prohibit junk food purchases with SNAP benefits. But some food lobbies are pushing back. This is according to reports, with Coke and Pepsi leading the way. That's where we go next with Congressman-elect from West Virginia, Riley Moore. Congressman, great to have you on the program. To me, it is a no-brainer. No junk food with taxpayer-funded money. What do you think?
Well, thank you so much for having me on. And absolutely, it's a no-brainer. There are currently 10,000 chemicals that are and ingredients allowed into our foods that are illegal in countries all over the world. And you see this where a box of, let's say, Fruit Loops here in the United States has all these different dyes and chemicals involved in it, that they make a version of that they export to markets such as Europe. But we are currently poisoning our own society, and it doesn't make any sense for us to allow people on SNAP benefits to purchase these types of items that are just going to make them more unhealthy, which, by the way, then we're going to end up paying for anyway, likely through the Medicaid process. So this just makes all the sense in the world to alleviate this and take this away and try to make America healthy again.
Congressman, thanks for joining us. I understand that you also want...
This right here, you better know Americans would say they're trying to stop us from buying food. They're stopping the SNAP. They're stopping the aid. They're stopping people from buying food. I can't even buy. Somebody's going to go to probably Walmart or Publix or Kroger or whatever and say, I wanted to buy a hot dog. And they're probably going to weigh 400 pounds saying, I wanted to buy a hot dog, but I couldn't buy more hot dog. They said I wasn't eligible for hot dog. They told me to buy kale, apples, carrots, grapes, asparagus, green beans. That's all they said I could buy. Salads. I want some hot dog and some junks. You better watch. That's what is going to be happening in the next 1 year.
to increase the child tax credit, currently at $2,000, and expanding that to $5,000 to give parents everywhere some relief from the inflation we've all endured over the past several years. But I can't tell you how many daycare operators I've spoken with who tell me giving tax credits to parents is great, but it does nothing to help them as small businesses trying to keep their doors open in this country. What more can or should you be thinking about when it comes to childcare?
Well, that's a great example there. And I do have 3 young kids of my own, all of which that have gone through daycare, one currently in there. And I couldn't agree more that what we need, and I think President Trump absolutely agrees with this, and particularly Vice President-elect J.D. Vance, we need more pro-family policies put into place in this country. The tax credit certainly is just one little part of that. We want to have more pro-family policies in this country. That's certainly something that I'm going to be leaning forward on in Congress. But yes, look, daycare is wildly expensive, and it is also very difficult to operate in this country as a daycare facility, given all the costs incurred for them to be able to operate as well. So that is something that we need to take under consideration of how can we try to be more helpful to families here in this country that are trying their best. They're working. They'd like to grow their family. You know, we're trying to be a country that, as we said at the outset of all this, in the pursuit of happiness. Well, there's nothing that's going to make people more happy than being able to have a family and grow that family and be able to have disposable dollars to be able to support that family.
You know, I think it's fair to say you're kind of part of a new wave of lawmakers that represents where the Republican Party seems to be trending. But you've got some lawmakers on the other side of the aisle who are saying surprisingly aligned things with what you're saying. One of them is John Fetterman. Listen to this.
You have a singular political talent. It's undeniable. Trump. You know, he had the energy and almost a sense of fearlessness to just say all those kinds of things. And people, it's undeniable that it has an entertaining aspect. And I happen to love people that are going to vote for Trump, and they are not fascists. And also fascism, that's not a word that regular people, you know, use.
You know, I don't think Fetterman's alone. I think he represents something on the traditionally Democratic side of America that's yearning for a middle ground that doesn't seem to exist in recent years. Is there more to the story than just John Fetterman sort of coming to the light here?
Well, look, there's a huge realignment going on right now, and that's been going on. It even predates, obviously, President Donald Trump. He was the first politician, and I would agree with this, that was able to capture that. I mean, he really spoke to the average American here. Look, the state of West Virginia up until 2014 was completely controlled, both chambers, House and Senate, by the Democrats for 83 years, right? We had total unified Democrat control till 2014. Now we voted for President Trump by over 70% here, him winning every county. And we've seen now Senator Joe Manchin now departing. There's a huge shift going on. And you were just on recently in your previous segment talking with members of the United Steelworkers. Well, the United Steelworkers is one of the unions that's actually supported me in my election because they have presence in my district. This is a totally different party than it was in the early 2000s. We are a party of the working class. I'm somebody who was part of that working class. I started my career off actually as a welder working in a mining operation. So this is a different kind of party, and I think it's going to continue to realign in that manner. John Fetterman sees that. Donald Trump sees that, and I couldn't agree more.
Well, we look forward to hearing from you as you take on your new job, Congressman-elect.
Yes, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, you want to keep going and you want to end the live stream right here. Thank you for tuning into the live show. You know what time it is. It is your boy, Genesis. Yes, sir. All right, what else do we have right here? O'Reilly predicts riots in the streets. Ooh,
let's bring in O'Leary
spicy.
Ventures chairman, Shark Tank
O'Leary.
investor Kevin
I keep
O'Leary.
calling him O'Reilly.
Kevin, don't you love this? I mean, he does start with these totally wild ideas.
Y'all remember the O'Reilly Auto Bar? That's what I keep calling him, O'Reilly, because come on. Oh, 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 O'Reilly Auto Part. How many of y'all have heard that before? Oh, 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 O'Reilly Auto Part. That's what I keep calling this dude right here. His name is O'Leary, not O'Reilly. I keep saying O'Reilly, y'all.
Although, when you really think about them, I mean, the Panama Canal Treaty, I remember when it was debated, Ronald Reagan debated with Bill Buckley about it and so forth. It is a contract. And it is a contract that has been broken literally thousands of times by the government of Panama, and China wants to get its greedy hands on it. What do you think the possibility is of Donald Trump coming in and say, hey, look, you guys broke a contract, it's ours?
Well, I think we know it's 100% probability that's going to happen, but Trump is a transactional guy. He's a negotiator. I think everybody understands that now, there's no doubt. And he picks his fights one at a time. Last week it was Canada, now it's Panama, and wow, we got Greenland on this list too. So, I mean, look, it's a very interesting way to start governing before you're actually the president. You do it by social media, you wake everybody up, they come flying to Mar-a-Lago. It makes sense to me. I don't see any reason why you can't do it. But the China thing in Panama is an issue, because if that was in any way affected and we didn't get access, that's a money saver for shipping in a very big way. So my guess is an envoy goes down there sometime in February and they start squeezing Panamanian heads to get a new deal.
By the way, your microphone is crackling a little. Just give it a little tug or something, just on your microphone. There, I think it's there.
Better?
I think you got it. The difference between Canada and China is monumental. I mean, Trudeau came into the U.S., bowed at the feet of Donald Trump, and folded like a cheap suit. I don't sense the same kind of reaction coming from Xi. What's going to happen with Xi? They're going to play hardball. It is going to be hardball between the two presidents. We know that Xi wants to become number one by knocking us down, whether it's legally through more trade or illegally through things like fentanyl and everything. He's been trying to do that for years. We know that's his MO. How do you think Trump is going to respond to that? I mean, I suspect it'll be like we saw in the first term, where he comes in strong with these new tariffs, don't you?
China's a different issue completely to Canada or any other country. The only way, you've got to remember, since 1999, since they came into the World Trade Organization, they have broken the rules with every country, including the U.S., every year. I'm an individual who does business there. My businesses have been absolutely screwed. I've said it countless times. They don't play by the rules. There's nothing reciprocal in our relations. The only way to make it work with the supreme leader, as I like to call him, is to inflict massive economic pain and risk on him by imposing tariffs on sectors where many Chinese people are employed. I have nothing against Chinese people. I have a lot against their government. And the only way to put him at risk is to say, look, if you want to mess with the largest economy you trade with, then we're going to force a lot of people that make yoga mats or electronics or whatever else it is to be unemployed in your cities. They'll be rioting in the streets, they won't have any bread, and you will be out of power. That is the only way it's going to work. So very selected, high-impact weaponry, like tariffs, but you've got to be hardcore. He only understands the stick. That's all he understands. Any weakness at all, he plays off, and he has done so for years. Yeah. So I'm hoping this is the administration that fixes the problem. I have really been hurt by China, and there are millions of other businesses in America that are in the same boat I'm in.
Absolutely. By the way, you mentioned the World Trade Organization. They still designate China as a developing nation. What that entitles China to are all these sweetheart loans that we partially pay for through the WTO, adding up to billions of extra dollars for the Chinese. Should Trump try to eliminate that designation of developing nation for China?
They're not a developing nation. Exactly. They're in an economic war with us and many European countries. That's got to get fixed. All that stuff has to get fixed. 40 years of getting screwed. That's what's happened.
And 40 years, by the way, of getting benefits that they don't deserve. And the Euros have gone right in there. And when there's a Democrat in the White House, they go right along. But I think it's going to be different now. Very quickly, The SEC, as we were just talking about in a previous segment, is going to change dramatically under Donald Trump. Paul Atkins is a big free market guy, unlike his predecessor. So what are you expecting in terms of opportunities that we couldn't see in the United States because the SEC played such a tough cop role that we won't see during the Trump administration? What more opportunities will exist?
They'll exist because decisions will be made, particularly in the crypto and digital payment systems markets, where we should be leading worldwide and we're falling behind because we can't make up our minds. Listen, Gensler had a point of view that everybody understood. He just litigated his way into the courts on it. We need to get some decisions so that firms like mine can be compliant. We want to play by the rules as we do in every other market, the debt, the equity, the options market. Just tell us what the rules are. Yeah. That's all we need to know. And that once that's put in place, you will see an orderly transition into bringing crypto into the overall economic institutional infrastructure. That's
someone in the chat said China's economy is unmatched in the last 30 years. America, not so much. I don't think so, bro. You may be reading a different stats, but okay. All right. Biden pardons a lot. Here we go.
Turning now to the surprise action today by President Biden commuting the sentences of 37 of the 40 federal prisoners currently on death row, commuting those sentences to life without parole. Now, this comes, of course, before the president-elect who supports capital punishment takes office. The Trump transition team calling the move a, quote, abhorrent decision, adding that it benefits those, quote, among the worst killers in the world. Back with us, Jeff Toobin, who's the author of the upcoming book, The Pardon, The Politics of Presidential Mercy, and also U.S. former federal judge Nancy Gertner. Good to have both of you. Judge Gertner, I want to point out you were one of those 38 legal voices who sent a letter to President Biden asking him specifically to commute all the sentences of those on federal death row. How do you feel about this decision to commute all but 3?
Well, I think the decision to commute even the numbers that he did was terribly important. There are all sorts of challenges to the death penalty that have been growing over the years. The concern that innocent people are being executed, the profound disparities between black and white people who wind up on death row. Even the public support for the death penalty has waned. So I think that what President Biden did was exactly right. It's interesting. He was actually a prime sponsor of the 1994 crime bill, which led to additional federal death penalties. So what's interesting is that the facts have moved him, and as they should all of us.
Jeff, I know you've made the point, too, that no one has actually been released from prison because of these commutations and these pardons from President Biden. Those who were pardoned were, had already been released, essentially. Do you anticipate, because he can, that he will go farther in the final weeks of his presidency?
Pardons are an anomaly in our constitutional system because there are no checks and balances. It's just what the president wants. And you learn a lot about presidents through their pardons. With Biden, there are very contradictory elements. He is a serious Catholic. The Catholic Church is opposed to the death penalty. One tip-off that he was going to issue these commutations is he's going to see the Pope next month, and the Pope has urged him to do that. However, he is also part of a generation of Democrats that really wanted to be tough on crime. He was a sponsor of the crime bill under Bill Clinton, which expanded the death penalty, made it harder to challenge death penalty convictions. And he is reluctant to let anyone out of prison. He commuted 1,500 sentences a couple weeks ago. They were all already out of prison. These 37 are never leaving prison. So he has not actually let anyone out of prison yet. And I don't know, as going forward, whether he's going to do that. He has hundreds of Justice Department approved pardon recommendations on his desk. I don't know if he'll sign them.
Yeah, what he'll choose to do with those. He, in his statement today, he wrote, in good conscience, I cannot stand back and let a new administration resume executions that I halted. Judge Gertner, what are your concerns when it comes to President-elect Trump's policy toward executions?
Well, we know the last time that there were, I think it was 13 executions, which his orders had hastened. And we know that among that group were people with intellectual disabilities. We know among that group one woman in particular who had been suffered extraordinary abuse. I mean, these were executions that were done with, in my view, unseemly haste to get them through. And given the kinds of problems with the death penalty, it should give all of us pause. We know that the death penalty is not a meaningful deterrent. The concerns for victims, which are very important, are oftentimes exacerbated by death penalty prosecutions, which last years and years and years. In the Boston bomber case, for example, one of the victims, the family of one of the victims, urged the court to, in fact, allow him to plead guilty to life without parole so it could be over. So I would be very troubled by another sort of rush to kill people, which is really what these executions are.
Even Luigi Mangione, that decision about whether they will seek the death penalty is certainly going to be before the Trump Justice Department, not the Biden Justice Department. Under Biden, there have been, I think, only one request for a death penalty case. There will certainly be more under Trump.
You talked about how conflicted President Biden is in a lot of ways. Do you think he is more or less conflicted after making the decision to pardon Hunter Biden?
I think he is more attentive to the issue. When he pardoned Hunter Biden.
Of course, when he pardoned Hunter Biden, That's what happened. Okay, he said he wasn't going to pardon Hunter Biden, and he did. And here we are. Everybody's making excuses for a president that said he wasn't going to pardon his son, but he did. There's nothing to say.
He had only issued 25 pardons in 3+ years as president. That was, frankly, an appallingly low number. There are 158,000 people in federal prison. It is hard for me to believe they all should be there. The president has the power to let some of their hard luck stories, who frankly are a lot more hard luck stories than Hunter Biden's story, not let them out of prison. And there are those opportunities in front of him. I mean, the Justice Department, which is not exactly soft on these issues, they've said these people should get out. We'll see whether Biden actually lets them out.
We will. Jeff Toobin, Judge Nancy Gertner, appreciate it. Thank you both.
Thank you for tuning in to the live show. You know what time it is. It is your boy, Genesis. What is going on with the Luigi Mangione case? What is going on with the Luigi Mangione case? Let's check it out right here.
We want to begin in New York, where the man accused of killing United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson has pleaded not guilty to state murder and terror charges in New York. Here's Luigi Mangione just about an hour ago as he entered the courtroom for his arraignment. Dressed in street clothes, he was flanked by officers. Mangione faces 11 counts in New York, including 1 for first-degree murder and 2 counts for second-degree murder. Now, if found guilty of the top charge, he could get life in prison without parole. But he also faces a federal murder charge, which means that the death penalty is on the table if he is convicted. This morning, Mangione's lawyer spoke about her concern about her client's ability to get a fair trial. Take a listen.
He's a young man, and he is being treated like a human ping pong ball between 2 warring jurisdictions here. These federal and state prosecutors are coordinating with one another, but at the expense of him. They have conflicting theories in their indictments, and they are literally treating him like he is like some sort of political fodder, like some sort of spectacle.
And CNN's Kara Scannell was also inside that courtroom and joins us now. So, Kara, bring us up to speed in terms of how it all went down and what happened.
Yeah, the whole arraignment took just about 20 minutes. Mangione was led into the courtroom. As you could see, they're in plain clothes with his ankles and his wrists shackled. There was the shackling around his waist as well. He was surrounded during the entire hearing by a wall of by a wall of court officers. And during
2024 has definitely been an eye-opener 2024 has been an eye-opener. 2025, I know for a fact that we're going to see new things in our lives, in our society, the way we communicate, the way we interact, the way we comprehend what is going on is going to be mind-blowing, guys. I just believe that.
In the hearing, Mangione spoke just once when he entered his plea of not guilty, but his lawyer did use the moment as an opportunity to raise some of these concerns that she has about there being federal charges, which he was indicted or he was charged with last week, and he had his first court appearance in that case on Thursday, and then these state charges where he was indicted on 11 felony counts, and today was his arraignment on those counts. So she had raised questions about the politicalization of this as well, pointing to the perp walk where Mangione got off that helicopter, walked down the long pier in New York City before he came to federal court on Thursday. She raised the issue that New York City's Mayor Eric Adams was there, saying that he was politicizing this, even quoting from some of him, while also saying that Adams himself should know something about the presumption of innocence because he is facing federal bribery charges. Adams has pleaded not guilty to those charges. So this was the first, appearance that Mangione's had in state court. They scheduled another appearance for February, but there was an issue here too about where he will be in custody, whether he will stay in federal custody or if he will be in state custody. The judge asking the prosecutor, who's a 30-year veteran of the office, who has primary custody of this defendant, and he said he believed the state does, but he said it was something that they had just gotten permission to take him out of federal custody for this hearing, so the judge telling him they need to figure out where Mangione is going to be housed as this case moves forward, both on a state track and on the federal track. Mangione is expected to be back in federal court in January for his arraignment on those charges. Rahel?
And Kara, speaking of where he's housed and where he is currently, what do we know about the conditions of the jail where Mangione is currently being detained?
So Mangione is held at the federal jail in Brooklyn, New York, the Metropolitan Detention Center. It has a reputation as a notorious jail that has poor conditions, that has some judges don't even want to put some defendants there as part of their sentence. It's one of the most notorious jails in the country. It's one of the most dangerous federal jails in the country and the current home of suspected shooter Luigi Mangione, who is facing a federal murder charge for allegedly gunning down the United Healthcare CEO on the streets of Manhattan. Inmate number 52503-511. Mangione is housed in a facility described by one judge as having dangerous, barbaric conditions and an environment of lawlessness.
All prisons are miserable places to be, but boy, the MDC is maybe the most miserable of all the federal facilities that I've been in. It is dark, it is overcrowded, it's loud, it's too hot in the summer, it's too cold in the winter.
Violence, contraband, and drugs plague the facility on the edge of Brooklyn that has housed some of the highest profile defendants in the federal system.
I feel really, really bad and regretful.
Among them, crypto king Sam Bankman-Fried, embattled music mogul Sean Diddy Combs, and Jeffrey Epstein's former girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell. Mangione will likely be isolated given his notoriety. A spokesman for MDC Brooklyn tells CNN, for privacy, safety, and security reasons, we do not comment on the conditions of confinement for any incarcerated individuals, including housing assignments. More than 1,100 people, male and female, are currently housed in MDC's notorious cells and dorm-style barracks.
It's bad enough that various federal judges have actually given reduced sentences or given defendants bail because of the conditions inside the MDC.
In 2019, during a polar vortex, over 1,600 inmates were locked in their cells, some with frigid temperatures, inadequate blankets, and toilets that wouldn't flush, according to a lawsuit, resulting in a $10 million settlement with inmates.
We determined that heating issues had been a long-standing problem at the jail.
In August of this year, the director of the Bureau of Prisons created an urgent action team to support the warden there and fill staffing shortages.
They are certainly riveted with a staffing crisis, which I think is a major driver of some of the issues that are bubbling up out of that institution.
But in September, the DOJ announced 5 inmates were charged in 2 separate murders of other inmates. A 6th was charged with attempted murder for allegedly stabbing another inmate 44 times with a makeshift weapon. Another inmate was sent to the hospital with an ice pick stuck in his back. A multi-agency sweep of the facility in October found a number of electronic devices, drugs and associated paraphernalia, and homemade weapons. And illegal cell phones are common. Federal prosecutors accused alleged gang members of taking photos from inside their cells, posing and showing off their tattoos. Inmates are not the only criminal offenders. In June, a corrections officer at the jail was sentenced for accepting more than $20,000 in bribes to smuggle drugs, cigarettes, and cell phones to inmates, according to the Department of Justice. Now, if Mangione stays at the MDC, that's the kind of conditions he'll be in. But if he is transferred into state custody, he'll go to the city's jail. That's Rikers Island, a jail that itself has its own reputation for being dangerous and notorious. Rahel?
Kara Scannell, appreciate the reporting. Thank you. Let's now bring into the conversation Court TV and former federal prosecutor Julie Grant. Julie, welcome.
Rahel, welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you. So it's not often that we see cases like the Luigi Mangione case that really capture national attention. Your thoughts on that, and what does it say about sort of where we are right now?
Sure, Rahel. It's a sad state of affairs when this morning, when we're getting ready for this arraignment to happen in state court in Manhattan, and everyone's preparing. You see security outside of the courthouse. You see the microphone set up for the press conference, and you hear cheering from people, cheering for a murder suspect. People have been very vocal and wanting to be vocal, unafraid, people wanting to show their support for this man. This is something really stunning because we know that homicides, sadly, happen far too often in America. And here, when you have a high-profile victim like Brian Thompson, and the way in which this was done, so bold, so brazen, some people are hailing this guy as a hero. And then it brings up a whole host of other legal issues as we move forward, Rahel, when we think about the 3 different cases that this guy has to deal with, 2 in New York, 1 in Pennsylvania, and whether or not we're even going to see a fair trial. So I think what we're seeing is stunning on some level. It's also somewhat of a wake-up call, I think, of where the climate is in America. But, you know, we have ways of going about things when we want to affect change, as you know, Rahel. And taking one's life, taking the law into one's hands, it's against the law. It's heinous, it's cruel, it's cold-blooded. That's what these allegations are. And so Luigi Mangione essentially made himself, you know, from a superstar Ivy League student to somebody who may never, ever see the light of day.
That's true. You gotta agree with all that. That's true. However, it's like, it's getting spicy, everybody. I don't know if you guys know about this Russian guy.
Tonight, we're getting new insight into what Marine veteran Paul Whelan faced during more than 5 years behind bars.
So it's not a Russian guy, right? He was in Russia, and some people are saying he's a spy. But listen to this.
In Russia. And that insight coming from the ex-prisoner himself. 6 years ago this week, Whelan was in Russia for a friend's wedding. That is when he was arrested by the FSB intelligence agency in Russia and then imprisoned on charges of espionage, charges he has always vehemently denied. In May of 2020, the U.S. State Department designated him as being wrongfully detained. The following month, he was convicted in a Russian court and sentenced to 16 years in prison, then transferred from Moscow to a remote prison camp. And that's where he led a personal campaign for his freedom, even making several phone calls and writing letters to a CNN reporter. This past August, the U.S. government secured his release in one of the largest prison swaps since the Cold War. And last month, Whelan sat down with Anderson and with CNN's Jennifer Hansler, the State Department reporter whom he reached out to from Russian captivity. Here's that interview.
Well, first of all, it's an honor to meet you. I'm so sorry for what happened. And what is it like being back?
Well, thanks for having me, Anderson. It's an honor for me, too. I've been a fan for years. Being back, it's surreal. I'm in a world that used to be familiar, and it isn't. I'm getting used to just simple things.
You were held in a prison in Moscow initially, which is a notorious, it's a high, like maximum security prison, I think. It's a very notorious prison.
Yeah, Lefortovo. It's called the shooting gallery because that's where the Russians used to and probably still do shoot their own people. It's a horrendously old, run-down facility, and you know you're in a small cell by yourself. basically 23 hours a day.
How long were you in that facility?
For a year and a half.
I cannot imagine suddenly from being in your hotel room, visiting your friend for a wedding, to being in this notorious prison. How do you mentally not just panic and freak out?
I probably did panic and freaked out. Very quickly, I realized that what was happening was real. There was some solace in the fact that I knew my ambassadors would be coming to find out what was happening. I wasn't sure how long it would take to resolve. I knew I hadn't done anything. I hadn't violated the espionage law. I'm not a spy. I never have been. They'd either made a mistake or they were making it up.
After the trial, you were sentenced like 16 years, I think?
Right, yeah.
You were sent to a labor camp in Mordovia, and you're still, for the next 3-4 years, you are woken up every 2 hours at night.
Yeah. I was an escape risk, apparently. Mordovia, there's nothing out there. It's woods, it's forests.
And so what, they would come in, wake you up, and what?
They'd shine a light in my eyes and then take a picture with a camera to prove that they had checked me.
Every night, every 2 hours?
Every 2 hours.
For years?
For 4 years.
Can you sleep normally now?
Now? I'm getting back to a normal sleep pattern. It's difficult.
How was it that you started to reach out to other reporters, one of whom is Jennifer Hansler, who's here? What was the thinking on reaching out?
I wanted to make sure that my story was being told, and I wanted to make sure that people weren't forgetting. I didn't want it to be put on the back burner and have other affairs of state take over people's interest. I'd made some phone calls, I'd written a lot of letters, and I wanted to speak to the media. So Jennifer was one of the early reporters that I spoke to quite clandestinely from prison.
How many calls in all, Jennifer, did?
I think it was about a dozen, but the first one was back in June 2021, and it came as a total surprise because I had known Paul's sister Elizabeth for quite a few months at that point, and she had asked at one point, can I give Paul your address because he enjoys writing letters? And then maybe a month later, he said, actually, can we give him your phone number? And I said, sure, of course, and sort of forgot about it. And then I was sitting at my table in June 2021, and a number just popped up that said Russia. No other caller ID. And I sort of thought maybe it was spam, but I picked it up, and then it's someone saying, this is Paul Whelan. And I was so taken aback, Anderson, that I actually sent a clip of it to Elizabeth to say, hey, is this actually your brother's voice? And she confirmed it was.
Did you hear that Navalny had died?
Yeah, he was murdered by the FSB in a secure prison. That's what happened to him. There's no question in my mind.
And when you heard that, what did you think about for yourself?
I was worried. I was worried that maybe the FSB would poison me, or maybe break a bone or injure me to try to get the U.S. to speed up the negotiations for Krasikov being returned. That's what Russia wanted for me.
You were aware of negotiations going on. Obviously, you were in contact with a number of people in the U.S. government. I know you talked to Secretary of State Antony Blinken and other high-level officials. But there was tremendous disappointment as you believed you were going to be part of prisoner swaps, that then you would suddenly see, Trevor Reed, I think, was the first sort of high-profile one. You learned that he had been freed, and you were certainly happy for him, but it's got to be incredibly difficult to see the days passing by. I mean, more than 2,000 of them.
Yeah, there were peaks and valleys, to be sure. I was glad that Trevor went home when he did. I was glad that Brittany went home when she did, but I was still there. And I was worried because the U.S. had given up their bargaining position when Victor Bout went home. The U.S. had nothing the Russians wanted, and I was stuck there.
The U.S. traded this guy, Victor Bout, who was an arms dealer, a very high-profile prisoner, and that was part of the deal for Brittany Griner.
Right.
There was a phone call that you made to Jennifer after the Brittany Griner release. This is a part of the call that you made to Jennifer.
I have to say I'm greatly disappointed that more has not been done to secure my release. Especially as the 4-year anniversary of my arrest is coming up. I was arrested for a crime that never occurred. I'm happy that Brittany is going home today and that Trevor went home when he did. But I don't understand why I'm still sitting here.
Was that the lowest moment for you?
That was one of two. The second was when my dog died. That was a realization that I wasn't going home to the home that I'd left. But when I realized that the U.S. had given up their bargaining position by sending Victor Bout back to Russia, I was extremely concerned. And yeah, it was a low point. And, luckily I had a friend to call and, we discussed it.
And Jennifer, you would get letters from...
Yeah, so I actually brought the 4 that I actually received. I don't know if this is all the ones that you sent me, but they would be sent to our bureau in D.C. and then months after the date they were postmarked. So I'm curious, Paul, what you make of seeing these now, all these years later.
This is your handwriting?
Oh, yeah.
Very neat.
Yeah, thanks. I sent more than 2,000 letters to my parents. We've got a stack of them at home. I sent letters to the Congresses, to the House and the Senate, the parliaments in Canada and England and Ireland. And they were all the same sort of thing. Talking about the restrictions, how the prison was doing things, how I was.
Wow.
Yeah, it's interesting to see because there's some of my usual jocularity in these, as well as, some serious things.
How much were you able to kind of remove yourself from your...
Can you imagine being captured by the FSB in Russia, and this is your story? Like, Jesus. Jesus. That's wild.
Surroundings, through writing letters, through reading, through anything else?
Staying in touch with the English language, staying in touch with authors that I was familiar with, that was quite important. I had English books coming in from the consulates through my family. I had a lot of mail that came in. When Brittany was released, she had people write hundreds of letters to me. That was extremely important. I mean, at one point, Jennifer and I were just discussing this, I was writing out ridiculists. Do you remember your ridiculous?
Yes.
I would write out, the 10 reasons why I wasn't a spy, or the 10 reasons why, Putin needed to go. All of these kind of funny things that kind of, sprang to mind. I've still got some of them written down.
Really?
Yeah. But that was an important part of staying sane.
What was that flight like? What was, we saw the video of you at the tarmac in, on American soil being greeted by President Biden, by the vice president as well. What was that like?
That was incredible. And we see on the monitor the president putting something on my shirt, and it's actually this.
That's the
flag. Yeah, this is the lapel pin. I didn't realize when we got on the plane, it was a CIA plane flying back, that we were going to meet the president and vice president. I'd been in solitary confinement for the 5 days prior. I hadn't had a shower in 2 weeks. I had clothes on that I'd actually worn when I went to Russia. So
the clothes you're wearing there, those are the clothes you were...
Those are the clothes that, yeah. So they were dirty. I was dirty. On the plane, I had to clean up as well as I could. And,
They also look like they don't really fit you anymore.
No, they don't, because I'd lost so much weight. Yeah. You saw me walking off very kind of gingerly, coming down those stairs, holding on, because I didn't have the strength. I didn't have the balance. The malnutrition had taken a toll. It was interesting to see the president. It was interesting to see the vice president, but there was a lot of media too. And I was glad to see them. Those were the people that had supported me.
Well, Paul, it's really an honor to talk to you. I'm so glad you're home.
Yeah, thanks very much.
And Jennifer, thank you, and thanks for all your work.
Yo, that's just wow. Jesus. Go to Russia to do something else and then you get caught for something else. Man, Russia they ain't playing around. These are some very serious people. They're not playing around.
In fact, incoming border czar Tom Homan is scheduled to be one of the speakers.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, should we do one more? Or that's it. Should we do one more? Or that's it. Okay, let's check this Blake Lively's issue. She's suing the producer to her movie where she was all lovey-dovey with some other guy. She's married to Ryan Reynolds, the Deadpool guy. This is his
Tonight,
wife
the
suing
publicist
somebody.
accused of helping orchestrate a smear campaign against Blake Lively after the actress complained of sexual misconduct on
There
the
we go.
set of her latest
Same
film,
thing.
says there was no such smear campaign. Publicist Jennifer Abel represents director and actor Justin Baldoni. Lively accused him and a producer of sexual harassment while they worked on the movie It Ends With Us, which, by the way, is about domestic violence. On Friday, Lively filed a civil rights complaint accusing Baldoni of sexual harassment and retaliation. The New York Times obtained the complaint, which includes Lively accusing Baldoni of improvised unwanted kissing, among other things. It says Lively raised her concerns about both Baldoni and producer Jamie Heath in a meeting during filming. The complaint then alleges after she complained, Baldoni and his team then tried to, quote, destroy Lively's reputation with a retaliatory social manipulation campaign. In a statement to CNN, Baldoni and Heath's attorney deny the claims, calling them completely false, outrageous, and intentionally salacious with an intent to publicly hurt and rehash a narrative in the media. Joining me now.
This is my opinion, okay? This is totally my opinion. I support the guy. Yeah. I support the guy. I support the guy 100%. Ryan Reynolds is my dog. I like Ryan Reynolds, but his wife, I mean, she's a, I don't know her. I don't know any of them. She's a good person, I assume. But if you're an actress and you're married and you're still willing to do role like that, where you kiss other men and you sort of kind of like, expose yourself to other men, you are an actress. This is what you signed up for. If you're married, like you're married to Ryan Reynolds right now, the Deadpool guy, she could just say, you know what? I'm married. I got, back when I was single, I could take a role like this. But for right now, I don't have to take a role like this. I mean, she's Blake Lively. She could take any role she wants, but she decided to take a role like that, and then now she's suing them. Like, what? This ain't Gossip Girl. She was a girl on Gossip Girl, I guess. It's a Gossip Girl, so yeah, I think so. But this is what happens in Hollywood. Bunch of shit.
Now is Kara Swisher, host of the podcast On with Swisher and Pivot, and Areva Martin, civil rights attorney. Areva, first to you. Thank you, ladies, also for being here on this holiday week. First to you. Now that there,
of course, they're going to support her. All of them.
Complaint filed, a civil rights complaint. Is this a precursor to a lawsuit?
Absolutely, Sarah. We should expect to see a lawsuit. And I can tell you this is a very detailed 80-page complaint that has been filed with lots of details about the sexual harassment that Blake Lively says she experienced while working on a set of this movie from Baldoni. Everything from unwanted kissing to conversations about the sex life of the producers involved in this movie, as well as conversations about pornography, showing of pornographic pictures. So it's a pretty salacious complaint. And then the allegations of the smear campaign about retaliation for making complaints about sexual harassment in the workplace and the creation of a hostile work environment.
Kara, we did see serious backlash against Lively on social media during the film's promotion. It was significant for this part of her complaint. It isn't just a he said, she said. There are, as Areva mentioned, text messages allegedly between Baldoni's publicist and crisis manager. Here's just part of one of them. It's basically, all press is so overwhelming. We've confused people so much. We've mixed messaging. It's actually really funny. That's just one piece of some of the stuff. I mean, what do you make of this when you see this? These are two women, by the way, standing behind Baldoni. Yeah.
Well, Hollywood and lots of places are full of crisis managers. What happens is there was a PR person for Wayfarer, I think, which is a company he owns with others. And then they hired a crisis firm when they probably anticipated that this was going to happen, given her complaints that had been kept quiet, right? That she was trying to change things. And I think often these people go into overdrive and create all kinds of havoc. And one of the things that's important to remember here is they don't have to do much. You just have to start to amplify things on social media in a very small way. And with people desperate for the story, people search and then others provide it. And so you can gin things up pretty quickly and pretty cheaply online. And you don't have to do much. And I think that's what they were talking about. If you create sort of questions about someone, especially a woman, it happened with Amber Heard, which was outsized. Given even on the best of days, both of them act badly, but Amber Heard got the brunt of this. I think it's very easy to do this to someone, especially a woman. Years ago, I did an interview with Gwyneth Paltrow when she was attacked really heavily online. I don't know if you remember that, but it was quite something to see. And these things can feel like a pile-on. And I think this pre-lawsuit, I guess it is really detailed in terms of how these people behaved.
Yeah, with the text messages as some of their evidence. Baldoni's publicist, we should mention, Jennifer Abel, posted messages on Facebook, which CNN have confirmed are authentic, that in part say, what the cherry-picked messages don't include, although not shockingly, as it doesn't fit the narrative, is that there was no smear implemented, no negative press was ever facilitated, no social combat plan, although we were prepared for it, as it's our job to be ready for any scenario, but we didn't have to implement anything because the internet was doing the work for us. Kara, when you see what happened and you look at these text messages, we don't know if we've seen all of them. To be fair, what do you make of that statement?
Okay, we'll see. We'll have to see, won't we? We'll have to see if there was something happening here. My point is, you don't have to do much, right? You don't have to do much of anything to create these kind of narratives around someone. And again, you've seen it time and again, always aimed at women, always in this same style. And I remember at the time thinking, what's happening here? There's something really unusual, because I didn't feel, instantly. And by the way, it could be just regular people doing it, but these people did nothing to stop it. They did nothing to not encourage it. And of course, they put him all over the place in all kinds of women-friendly environments. He got an award from a group that was, very pro-woman. He had a podcast with someone who's well-known feminist, very I love women kind of thing. And, at the very least, his behavior on the set that she's alleging is pretty terrible. And as she begins to prove it, I think I'd be very quiet if I was a publicist right now. But they can't help themselves, I guess.
Areva, what is next here? What should we expect the next thing to be in this case?
Well, a couple of things can happen, Sarah. We often see these kinds of complaints filed. They become public complaints. And sometimes these cases settle out of court very quickly. And we never know the results of the settlement because there's a non-disclosure agreement along with the settlement.
After Amber Heard, I think nobody believes.
But other times, like in the Amber Heard, Johnny Depp case, there is a public trial. And we get to see the evidence that each side has. And we've already seen some of the text messages, screenshots of messages from Blake Lively's team. I suspect there's a lot more that we haven't seen. And it's just, does the defendant in this case have the stomach for a public trial? But if not, this could settle very quickly out of court.
Kara Swisher, Areva Martin, thank you both for coming in this evening. Appreciate you.
Thank you for tuning in to the live show. You know what time it is. It is your boy, Genesis. Yes, sir. We have come to the end of the live show. Instead of looking for perfection, seek for consistency. Never give up on yourself. Never give up on your dreams. Never give up on God. Believe in yourself. Believe in your dreams. And believe in God. All right. Life is hard, of course, but don't give up on yourself. Do not throw in the towel. Okay? It is hard out here. I ain't gonna cap. It is hard out here. However, this is what separates winners from losers. You keep going. Sometimes the momentum falls back a little bit, or like pulls down a little bit, but do not stop moving forward. This is all you have. You have one life, I suppose. And this is why you're here. To keep going, to prepare a better future for your kids, a better future for yourself, a better future for the people that love you, and love yourself, okay? Just love yourself. You have to love yourself. If you don't love yourself, you're going to keep giving energy to people. So 2025 for me personally, is about taking my energy back from people and keeping it and using it for myself. It is your boy, Genesis. I am signing out of the premises. And thank you to the veterans. Thank you to Mr. Buski. Thank you to all the moderators. Zyros Garden, God